Yeah, I got the plan, I got the fam, I got the keys, I get to work. I ain't the man, you know what I'm saying, so leave it to me, cause I get it first. Yeah, woo, I've been going all day, man. Same plan, can't change that. Till I'm riding around, whole squad sitting back, chilling in the Maybach. Yeah, only as deep as your roots go. I don't do corny like fructose. If you got the drama, that's word of my mama, I'll cover you up like a tombstone. I was last in my past, now you see I'm the one. They say work, never work, if you work and it's fun. We on a winning team, on top where you find us. We can do anything, non-stop till our time's up. We on a winning team, on top where you find us. We can do anything, non-stop till our time's up. We can do, ayy, we coming up from the dirt, ayy. They tryna get us to fall, ayy. I don't even gotta flex now, boy, it's only win by the fault, ayy. Taking off with the ring, ain't nothing left, man. We the kings, ran with the team, ran with the dream, ran with the one fan in the seats. Ayy, I pay my dues, check the receipt. Looking at you, you already peaked. Way back then. You can't follow with my tracks, man. I was last in my past, now you see I'm the one. They say work, never work, if you work and it's fun. We on the winning team, on top where you find us. We can do anything, non-stop till our time's up. We on the winning team, on top where you find us. We can do anything, non-stop till our time's up. We on the winning team, on top where you find us. We can do anything, non-stop till our time's up. We on the winning team, on top where you find us.
It is a brand new year, and we are excited to be back. 2025, race 1, but race 10 in season 7 of the 4Wide Racing TJ's Team Series. Welcome to the KBueno Racing Network's coverage of the Drop in the Hammer pre-race show in anticipation of our first race since the 2024 end of the year, and it's at Talladega Super Speedway. Kenneth Bueno alongside Francisco Bacallao will be bringing you all of the coverage from green flag to checkered here at this 2.66 mile super speedway in Lincoln, Alabama. First of all, Francisco, welcome back. Welcome to 2025. A big happy new year to you. And how excited are you for this one? I mean, it's going to be our first one back since a couple of weeks off for the Christmas and New Year break, but we are firing right back on all 8 cylinders here at Talladega. Now, we're going to be rolling through the heart of the regular season from here on out. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm happy to be back, Kenneth. Happy New Year to everybody here from KBRN, to all of our viewers. And we're excited to bring you 4Wide Racing action here in 2025. And this is a good opportunity to get back going into the swing of things. It's been a while since we've had a show, but we're excited here. And none other than a place like Talladega to bring back the show and have some chaos while we're at it.
Our second super speedway race of this season, and it comes after the season opener back in September. It's been already quite a while since we've gone plate racing in this series. Daytona was the only time we saw it, and then we go to Talladega tonight. We'll be heading to Darlington for the throwback race next week. Then the week after that at Kansas, we'll be racing the next 3 or 4 weeks consecutively in this series before we take our first little break after for the All-Star Week at Las Vegas, and then we'll be back at it in mid-February for Iowa and the rest of the season until the playoff opener, and when we return to SoCal and the Auto Club Speedway in Fontana. But this one will be big, Francisco, not only because it's another race off of a lengthy break, so the drivers are just going to get the rust off themselves and get themselves back into a rhythm, but most importantly, no driver other than Lawson Peel, Brandon Hawken, and Steven Maggio have won at least the last 5 to 6 races. They've been on a hot streak. No one else has been able to win. But the one thing we know about super speedways, they are the great equalizer. Anyone could get a win that locks them into the playoffs tonight.
We have our own big 3 going on this season, Kenneth, and Lawson Peel's the latest one to show up here and add himself to that conversation. Of the 11 races, those 3 have won 9 of them, the only exceptions being Steven Stempian back at the opener at Daytona, and Kyle Tursak at Bristol, the 3rd race of the season. Ever since then, it has been either Lawson Peel, Brandon Hawken, or Steven Maggio. So it just goes to show how incredible those guys have been and the consistency that they've shown. And Talladega, you would think it's the ideal place to add someone new, and honestly, that's a rightful way of opinion. But we've seen Lawson Peel be in contention to win at Talladega before. Who's to say Brandon Hawken can't throw his hat into the ring and see what he can make it happen here? And of course, we've seen Steven Maggio be competitive just about anywhere. Why wouldn't Talladega be another place? So there's really nothing that you can look at and say, yeah, it's just about everybody.
You squeeze the door a little bit open, but obviously those guys have won already. They're still here. It's not like they're out of the race, so they still have a possible opportunity, and that's a really good point. All of them are pretty decent super speedway racers. We know how good Lawson is with his teammates at Drinkin' Bros Racing. We've yet to see Brandon Hawken race a super speedway, but he's fast everywhere with any car, so it could be a chance for him to show his stuff at this type of track. We didn't have a broadcast on our last race at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We still have some highlights to go with you, though. Lawson Peel, the winner at the Brickyard. Once again, it started with you, Francisco, on the front row with Steven Maggio, a KBueno Racing sweep, 1st and 2nd. There was already drama in the opening lap, though. Maggio getting punted out of the way in turn 1 by Brandon Hawken. Was a little confused about the move by Hawken, who's a relatively clean racer, but Maggio got a bit of damage, was able to sort that out and keep going. There was one of the bigger crashes of the night. Austin Reedy, Kevin D'Elia getting involved in the short chute, Adam Alashire getting turned on the back straightaway. But Francisco, this one came down to a Hawken versus Peel masterclass with you in the background there. 3rd at the end. It was fun racing between you guys.
Yeah, there was a fair bit of cautions there in that middle section, but it opened up the strategy towards the latter portion of the race, and some contact there just as they crossed the bricks. Those two were putting up an absolute fight, and I was watching them just as they were getting smaller in my front windshield as Lawson Peel eventually got back past the 98 to retake the lead and get his third win of the season and his second in a row. So Lawson Peel really starting to turn up the wick here in this portion of the season. Kenneth, after that early struggle and only having that one win at Las Vegas, he has really turned things around, and now he's sitting here equal to both Brandon Hawken and Steven Maggio. I was having a great time in that race, Kenneth. I started on pole. It wasn't the best start. I got loose off at turn 2, but fought my way back, and I was able to get a top 10 finish out of that, and I'm happy to say that I'm now locked into the All-Star race.
Yeah, you'll be racing there at Las Vegas Sin City, which should have some new names in there too. You may see a Kenneth Bueno in there, wink, wink. But Francisco
that would be great.
Be at the All-Star race, and he will have a chance to fight for actually a playoff spot. So as far as we see it, there could possibly be a playoff spot for Francisco Bacallao if he runs the rest of the season.
I don't think so.
All right, well, we'll see what happens then. But you're right, Lawson Peel has been on the hot streak, has won the last 2 in a row. He led 28 of the 80 laps at the Brickyard several weeks ago to get his third win of the season. We made it a storyline early this campaign that Lawson has been bit on a struggle run as of late. He hasn't been able to capture the full-on race success, but he's had the hot hand, so he can capture a third one here at Talladega should he be there at the right moment. And Talladega has been one of the staples of the 4-wide racing series, basically in any stock car racing series on iRacing, because it's so big, it is so fast, and it is a track that can give anybody a chance at a victory. Well, one of the last times we were here, it was a very special moment, and that's why in today's KBRN Moment in Time, we head back to Season 6, Talladega Superspeedway, where Tyler Murray captured his first win in a while. Welcome to today's KBRN Moment in Time. For this one, we don't travel too far. Season 6, Talladega Superspeedway. Craig Lauenslager, Ryan Pandiscio to the green. Let's go regular season racing one last time at Talladega. The 2.66-mile behemoth was the host of the regular season finale in this edition of the 4-wide racing TJ's Team Series, and it was spectacular from the very start. Lots of 3-wide racing dominated the early goings, and several teams took control of the race lead, such as Drinkin' Bros Racing, KBueno Racing, and the Murray Reedy Motorsports tandem of league owner Tyler Murray and his teammate Kyle Benson. Midway through the race, it became clear that this would come down to green flag strategy, and everyone started coming in with a little over 30 laps to go. Drinkin' Bros Racing had their 5 enter pit lane, while there were some scares on the racetrack. Craig Lauenslager getting tapped by Jesse Prees and going hard into the wall. This contact, though, would not cause the yellow. Murray Reedy Motorsports pitted with 7 laps to go and had enough distance to the rest of the field to control the race from there on out, meaning Murray and Benson could cross the checkered flag in tandem, giving the league owner his first win of the season and his first win in 98 races. Murray celebrating the moment as Benson watched alongside, a meaningful moment for the 2 long-tenured teammates. And that's today's KBRN Moment in Time. What a wonderful story there with Tyler Murray getting his first win in 98 races, Francisco. I mean, we've had plenty of great finishes here at Talladega Superspeedway. A lot of them photo finishes, a lot of them new winners in the fold. Tyler is part of that group, but the story of how much he had to deal with in between race victories until that one with his teammate made it oh so special. I remember Kyle told me a couple of weeks ago that in that moment he could have easily passed his teammate and won the race, but he decided to give the win to his league owner and to his friend, his longtime teammate. So really cool with that story of Tyler Murray getting that win the last time we were here at Talladega.
Yeah, it was definitely a very emotional victory for Tyler Murray, who hadn't won since Season 2, all the way back at Daytona. It's been years, really, when you look at the time difference between those two. But for Kyle Benson, at least, it would end up coming back towards him as he ended up winning the playoff race at Daytona by mere inches over another teammate of his in Austin Reedy. So eventually that win did come back in Kyle Benson's way, but for Tyler Murray, Kenneth, it was definitely a popular win. Everybody was happy for him, and here he is as the defending winner of this racetrack, hoping to see if maybe he can knock off another one.
And he's representing himself, but he's also representing Murray Reedy Motorsports, the camp that includes Kyle Benson, Austin Reedy, Craig, Lauenslager, and several others. They won the last 2 super speedway races, including this one and the one that you mentioned in that photo finish, as stellar as it was at the virtual Daytona International Speedway. So we'll always keep an eye on what they can brew here. They put off a strategy that worked last time at Dega. They could do it again when we return here with the next-gen cars tonight. Well, as Francisco mentioned it earlier on in the show, the Big Three is a phrase that's been tossed around over the last several weeks when you look at the performances of Lawson Peel, Brandon Hawken, and Steven Maggio. But while 2 of them will tell you that the story really isn't a Big Three, you cannot ignore the success that they've had dominating 4 wide over the last several weeks.
Yeah, last 2 races have increased the confidence for sure. Just there's some places we went like Loudon that I didn't really feel like I was in the same zip code as Hawken. I felt like at Watkins Glen I was as close to perfect as I could be, and it still wasn't quite enough. But the last 2 at Atlanta and Indy, felt like my best. At least gave me a chance.
There was the question of whether Maggio, as a rookie, could impress anymore, or he just showed the field that he can do that.
As far as that goes, I'm very happy with the way that I've been performing so far. I didn't really expect it, but now I can expect it, I feel like. So we're only, I'm probably halfway through the regular season now, and there's still definitely a lot of races where things can change. So
we know that Peel has been in a situation like this to be able to fight with Hawken for the race lead, aka Charlotte was a prime example of that.
He's going to win most of the races he shows up to, and that's the way I feel. And so you've seen me race him really hard, which probably harder than I race anyone else out on the track. There's just so many people that are capable of winning, and I know that they are all hungry and kind of looking to knock us off.
At the end of the day, there was a Big Three in real life, and then Joey Logano beat them all. So you can't just say that we're the 3 best and one of us is going to win it, because it's still anyone's game.
And here are the stats to back the 3 drivers up. All of them share 3 wins apiece this season over the last 9 or so races, give or take, in 4 wide for 2024 and now 2025. And it's such an impressive resume for all 3 of them. They all seem to have their distinct characteristics that make them special as race car drivers. And often we see Lawson Peel at the top in 4 wide, but we haven't seen Brandon Hawken as much because this is his first full-time season. And for Steven, he's bearing the rookie stripes this time around in 4 wide. So you look at a caliber of 3 drivers that are all special in their own way, and they are dominating the season right now.
There absolutely are, Kenneth. These are the guys that are contending to win every single week, and they're performing such to capture those wins. You look at these stats, and these are amazing stats, Kenneth. But what if I told you that not a single one of these guys are in the top 3 in points? Your top 3 in points is actually Jaden Porter, Kyle Benson, and Curtis Kelly. Those are your top 3 in points. 0 victories, but Jaden Porter, actually, as a matter of fact, is the leader of 4 wide in top 10s. He has 8 top 10s. So, yeah, we have a Big Three with wins, but don't count out guys, even though they haven't been to victory lane. They've definitely shown that week in and week out they're some of the most consistent guys here and can get the job done.
That's a sentiment echoed by Peel and Maggio. When I talked to both of them, they basically said the same thing. They told me, yeah, there's a Big Three. We've been the best 3 drivers so far this season, and it's cool. It's great that we're having success, but there are so many other drivers that could win a race this season. Lawson mentioned Benson directly. Steven mentioned his teammates, Jaden Porter and Ethan Fonseca Moreno, as guys that are a threat each and every week. And although they're not dominating the win column right now, they are in a position where they're almost breaking that door down, if you will, and they could find themselves with a W sooner than later. And you mentioned it, Francisco. All of them at the top of the point standings, but they haven't been able to capture a checkered flag. So the story doesn't really tell you the entire thing when you just look at numbers by themselves. And we're going to talk to a driver here that hasn't been able to pick up a 4 wide win, but could knock on the door with one here tonight. We are joined by Daniel Moore for Not Stonks, but Still Kind of Stonks. Daniel, welcome. You got a copy with us?
Yeah, how's it going?
All right, Daniel, we're doing good. We hope you are as well. We're excited for tonight's race at Talladega, and it's the first time we talked to you all season. So give us your thoughts on how the season's gone and what you have seen firsthand personally in your 4-wide campaign this time.
Well, I've had a rough go of it. I've ended up in a lot of people's messes so far, and made a couple of my own, unfortunately. But I'm enjoying it to this point.
And we talk about Talladega, Daytona, the equalizer of racing, whether you're a driver who's dominated or a driver who hasn't been able to find that success. What do you see in these super speedway races in that attempt to find a 4-wide victory tonight?
Well, I see it the way a lot of teams do in the Cup Series. I think my best finish of the season was the opener, Daytona. So I have a good chance to get a good top 10 maybe finish today, which would definitely help my case in the standings.
Well, Daniel, we know that you're a part of the not stonks but still kind of stonks camp. A lot of drivers in there, ranging from AJ Green to Colin Forrester to guys like Brandon Hawkin or guys like Curtis Kelly and such. How do you try to work with them together tonight to ensure that you could put yourself in a position to win number one, but the entire team gets to eat the plate too? Well,
Before the races start, I talk to them a good bit with just advice, with what kind of strategy we're going to be running for the race, and just best ways to stay out of trouble, who to avoid at what tracks, because I haven't been running this league long. I started middle of last year, so mostly just trying to figure out and trying to improve personally.
Well, Daniel, we certainly appreciate the time. We wish you the best of luck here tonight at Talladega Super Speedway, and hopefully the good things happen on track. Best of luck on there.
Thank you. Have a good one yourself.
That's Daniel Moore, driver of the number 77 Chevrolet for not stonks, but still kind of stonks. And the reason why I mentioned drivers like AJ Green and Colin Forrester, who are technically on Stonks Motorsports, they are affiliate teammates, so technically they do work together in some shape or form, especially at these super speedways where the friends matter a lot until that white flag is displayed. Let's get a look at our KBRN track map with images provided to us by Google Earth. Francisco Talladega is the biggest track on the schedule oval-wise, and it's all about speed.
And it doesn't matter if it's single car speed, Kenneth, because you're going to be in a pack here the entire time. Drafting is the key around this racetrack. The more cars, the bigger draft effect you'll have here. So you'll look for guys trying to get probably a single file line, preferably around the top with these cars. That seems to be what they like. But also, if you're able to have some kind of alternate strategy, you need cars to be able to do it. And let's just show you what a lap here looks like. And it's ran by yours truly here, Kenneth. So since this is your lap and you got the feel for it, why not? Show everybody what it's like.
Well, no one can give me any criticisms because I'm foot flat to the floor. I am not doing anything but steering the race car. You know, Riley Herbst once said that you lock your elbows, you hold on to the wheel, you keep it pretty, and you let her rip. That's exactly what I did. Usually run the top in a qualifying lap to gain all the momentum. You float down low to that yellow line, and that's exactly where you stay. You're going to see drivers in very different lanes throughout this race because of where the draft is leveled, whether it's at the bottom with the most drivers or at the top with the most momentum. Off of the 32 to 33 degrees of banking in the corners, there's a lot that you can play with, and you can see how wide it is, especially compared to Daytona. This track has many more lanes of use, so you may see 3 wide often. You could see some 4 wide as well. It will be very fun to see that, but in qualifying, when you're all by yourself, you just wrap that yellow line and hope that your speed is enough to carry you to that start-finish line, which, by the way, is a couple thousand feet farther than the center of the tri-oval, something we always bring up at Dega. It is not where Daytona has it in the center of the tri-oval. It's right there in that little short chute to turn 1. So that'll give you a little bit more of an opportunity to try a move, a last-ditch effort if you're in that place to do so, and that's our KBRN onboard lap from the Talladega Super Speedway. I know that we kind of analyzed my lap at Atlanta, which you can make fun of it, you could say whatever you can, because it's Atlanta, it's a harder track to drive, but I let the car do the work for me at Talladega.
And you're going to let it work for you at Las Vegas,
Yeah.
right?
I would hope so. I hope that's the case. But it is much more difficult when you're out on the track with a bunch of other drivers in the draft. And one thing that we've touted about these next-gen cars is that you can get big runs with them in the draft. And these cars also snap quite a bit when you're off of the corners in the middle of a big group. So it can also be a difficulty to drive when you're out on the racetrack with a bunch of other drivers. And we've seen already some of the best in the series take on the track with a bit of that enthusiasm of working together and getting a taste for what it's going to be like in race trim. And here's history at Talladega. We talked about our KBRN moment in time. This was our previous race here, season 6 in the playoffs. Tyler Murray, not a playoff driver, but a meaningful moment for him regardless, getting his first win in 98 races, one of the longest winless streaks we saw in 4-wide at that time. The previous race was our regular season one here at Talladega, where Brandon Banks, Wyatt Brackett went side by side all the way to the stripe. It was one of the closest finishes we've seen in 4-wide history to date. Brandon Banks, that was his third career Talladega Superspeedway win, which, as we see it, is the most out of anyone that we have in this series to win at this track. The previous race with the next gens was in the playoffs. Craig Lautenslager getting this win to lock himself into the championship 5. And despite the chaos off turn 4, it was a rather clean finish to the stripe. Cannot be said, though, for the race before then, also in the same season, and we see a similar name at the top of the board. While Lautenslager celebrated his win dearly and got out of the session to victory lane, Tyler Murray saw his race get ripped away from him in the trial bowl, and while they were wrecking, Brandon Banks was able to escape from a spinning Daniel Michel to win the race at the very last second. Francisco, we've seen so many close finishes here. We could only see another one added tonight.
And also, clearly what that tells me is look out for Brandon Banks here tonight, not repping number 54 anymore this season, but that number 5 machine is going to be one to watch here at the end of the race, particularly on that white flag lap. Just keep an eye out on wherever he is, because he seems to show up out of nowhere. And that race that he won over Wyatt Brackett was actually leading at the center of the trial bowl. But of course, the lead change there happened in the second portion of that trial bowl and resulted in the third closest finish in 4-wide history.
And our closest finish in 4-wide history has not happened at Talladega. Talladega's only third, and second is to a 1.5-mile track in Charlotte. Daytona has the closest 5/1000ths of a second between Colin Forrester and AJ Green. Sort of a callback, if you will, when you look at the finish from last season between Kyle Benson and Austin Reedy at the same speedway. But these tracks provide close finishes, and with these next-gen cars, it probably gets tighter when you look at the margins between all of them. Well, that'll do it for our coverage of the Drop in the Hammer pre-race show. We thank you so much for tuning in to our little pre-race anticipations for the 10th race of Season 7 in this 4-wide racing TJ's Team Series. But on the other side, we've got racing from the second Superspeedway calendar track of the year, and our first one of 2025, Talladega, comes your way next.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series in officially licensed cars engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
bonus. For my quota, boy, don't nobody own us. I just get a check. In the jail with the set, all we do is rap. Ain't worried about the next one, I'm just making plays, Broadway in the flesh. On us, this right here with the on us.
Another long break is by, and it is the dawn of a brand new year. Resolutions, goals, and anticipations for a fresh slate in 2025. But for those getting behind the wheel against each other for the first time this year, the goals and anticipations remain the same as the regular season turns to the largest obstacle yet for a championship pursuit, Talladega. Welcome to the virtual Talladega Super Speedway, where the KBueno Racing Network welcomes you to coverage of Race 10 in the Season 7 4-Wide Racing TJ's Team Series. And we are so happy to have you on the coverage tonight on the KBueno Racing Network, where alongside Francisco Bacallao, I'm Kenneth Bueno. With 2025, it's basically a blank page for everyone to write into this year, and with a new super speedway race on the calendar, we could have ourselves a brand new winner this season, and it is going to be fun. We had plenty of information for you on our Drop in the Hammer pre-race, so let's get you down to the grid, where we've got the Drop in the Hammer starting grid, and it is Steven Maggio at the head of it all with the fastest time. He's got the pole in his number 51 Toyota Camry with a 53.089. He's got Brandon Hawken on his outside. They both have won 3 races this season and are already stunting in queue at the Super Speedway. Lance Hill rejoins us from third this race on the starting grid. He's got Steven Sempian, the Daytona winner, on his outside, looking to bring the 8th Chevrolet into victory lane for the second time this season. Ryan Pandicio has P5 in his number 63 Ford Mustang. He's got AJ Green on his outside in position number 6. Back in row 4 is where you'll find previous Talladega winner Craig Lautenslager in 7th. Austin Reedy, who was just a couple of inches shy of a Super Speedway win at Daytona in the last campaign. He'll look for a Super Speedway win tonight, rolling from 8th. Brandon Banks, who has 3 career Talladega victories, will roll off from 9th, and the rookie Juan Escamilla will look to rebound after Super Speedway struggles at Daytona. He lines up in the top 10.
In 17th, your points leader, Jaden Porter, in the 18th spot. Christopher Bishop will be in the 19th spot with Adam Alatar in the 20th.
Back in 21st is where you'll find Kevin D'Elia in his Chevrolet. Kyle Benson rolling from pretty far in the field, 22nd outside of row number 11. Back in row 12 is where you'll find 23rd place Craig Rowe in his 24 Chevrolet. Daniel Moore, our pre-race interview driver, will roll off on the outside of row 12 in 24th spot. Back in 25th is where you'll find Timothy Cook's number 19 with Brandon Gillis on his outside in 26th position. Lawson Peel, the first man not to take a qualifying time. He'll be from 27th at the green flag with his teammate Eric Schaefer in the 3 machine. Tony Kimmett will roll off 29th. Cody Kinsey on his outside will round out the top 30. And back in 31st is where you'll find Michael Newbra on his Chevrolet. Brian Dixon, one of the dual winners at Daytona, in 32nd. 33rd to the 17 of Craig Parks, and Canadian Eric Stewart will round out the 34-car grid from the 2.66-mile behemoth of Talladega Super Speedway. Well, let's get a moment to dial up our KBRN in-race reporter for tonight. That is the league owner, Tyler Murray, driving his number 36 Ford Mustang Dark Horse and looking for his first win since that Talladega win that came over 1 season ago. We'll try and bring him in just a moment. Tyler Murray, you got a copy with us?
Yes, sir. How y'all doing tonight?
We're doing good. We're excited. We hope you are as well. Tyler, returning to Talladega should be an emotional scene after getting your first win in a while here last season with your teammate, Kyle Benson. What's the motive and the strategy like for this one tonight?
You know, it's just you got to keep all four corners on the card tonight. Obviously, I feel like this and Daytona are my best two chances to win every season. So, just trying to be there at the end. Try to get out of my own head and not put myself in a situation where I'm trying to race too early just because I get bored. Just keep the car clean. Avoid the big one that we know is coming.
And with races like these, when you turn to the last one we'd had here, it was a flag-to-flag affair. I'm sure that for you and many others, that's not the expectation tonight, and that we should see some cautions along the way. But should it get down to strategy, what seems to be your plan in working together with your Murray Reedy Motorsports teammates and getting it done?
You know, you obviously just try to save as much fuel as possible, as early as possible, and then you just once you get around halfway, 3/4 of the way through the race, you start realizing where the fuel is going to be. So that's really our plan, is just to see where we're at and how the cautions fall. These cars are a lot more dirty than the B car, so I definitely expect it to not go flag to flag, but just got to be there when it matters.
Well, let's talk about your paint scheme, Tyler, because you told me a couple hours before the race began that you are not going to be running yellow or gold on your numbers. You've got the Penn State Nittany Lions logo on your hood for your Ford Mustang tonight in prior of the CFP semifinal game. It's going to be a lot of fun, but Tyler, we'll touch in with you over the course of the race, and best of luck tonight.
Thank you, guys.
That is Tyler Murray, driver of the number 36. We've got drivers on the racetrack with the pace car down, ready for the drop of the green flag tonight. It is Steven Maggio. It is number 51 with Brandon Hawken on his outside. Both of them non-winners at super speedways. They can change the storyline here. Welcome to 2025 and our first race of the new year at Talladega.
As they work their way off a turn 4 to complete this first lap, it has not taken long for your Daytona winner to find himself close to the front of the field. Steven Stempian behind Brandon Hawken. Your pole sitter Steven Maggio's hanging on inside the top 10 as AJ Green serves his lap 1 penalty.
That inside line has gone away. Only about 2 cars that have broken free with Maggio. The pole sitter on the inside. Hawken has taken over control of the race lead. Everyone behind them. And you're right, Francisco AJ Green on pit road to serve his drive-through penalty after the incident several weeks ago at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. There was also another penalty given to Jesse Prees for Drinkin' Bros Racing after his contact with Keelan Belsha midway through the race, but he is not in the session tonight. Therefore, he is not able to serve his end-of-line and probation penalties. It'll be in effect at our next race at Darlington Raceway. Hawken being able to lead, though, over the first lap and a half. Now make it 2 laps, crossing the start-finish line. No moves from anyone on the top. And Francisco, surprisingly enough, no one on the inside making a charge at it. Maggio fell out of harm's way. He got into the pack and settled nicely single file, but no one has put any pressure on Hawken up front.
I guess the biggest part is that they look up and see 94 laps, and this is only the 3rd one, so best for everybody if they just pick off these laps and make sure that they take care of these race cars so they have something to battle with towards the end of the race, because you have to remember, no fast repairs here for these guys, so they definitely want to treat these cars like they're eggs and make sure that at the end of the race they have something to compete with. Otherwise, it's just going to be an early exit. As now further back, there's some 3 wide action as cars are navigating past Adam Alshire, who looked to have a moment earlier in the lap.
Looks like a little slow on the inside lane. Appeared to have let the field by on the apron, but he instead gets back in line right behind our pre-race interview driver, Daniel Moore, and he's back at it. But as for the rest of the field up front, all single file, and it seems like no real charges, but obviously the super speedway favorites like a Steven Stempian and an Austin Reedy, who more often than not we see working with his teammate Kyle Benson, but they've got some cars in between them. Benson sits all the way back in position number 10, so there is still a ways to go. Francisco, it looks like we had a moment to see what happened there with Adam Alashire, potentially a faulty push.
Yeah, he checks up just about here, and then Benson just gets him in the right rear. Look how sideways that gets him. An excellent save all the way to the apron of the racetrack, but he was able to merge without really causing any issues because they were single file.
And luckily no one down low. When you ricochet off of a car from the top side, you can immediately travel down the banking and create some havoc. And as Tyler was mentioning, the big one, always on the horizon when you're here at this super speedway, as big and as chaotic as it can get with a 2 and 3 wide racing. But everyone gets the memo early. Stay clean, stay out of trouble, don't do anything stupid if it means staying alive in this race. And even if it means some lost track position early, you probably will like that better than being involved in a crash in the first several laps. And that's something that Keelan taught us on the Keelan's Keys to the Race from Talladega. He is not in the broadcast booth tonight. He is stuck at work. We wish well for Keelan. Should be back at Darlington Raceway next week. We'll be racing hopefully in our All-Star race at Las Vegas Motor Speedway down the line, or at least we'll try to qualify for that. He says, embrace the chaos. The Talladega is always known for the big crashes and the wild spectacles, but embrace how wild racing at super speedway like Talladega is. Teammates are your best friends. You're going to want to get with all of your teammates, technical alliance members, whoever it may be. That will help you sincerely when it comes down to a final push at the end. Keep a keen eye on strategy. Last season, we had a flag-to-flag affair, and while we can't expect the same tonight, that it'll go green all the way, we could still see green flag pit stops, and if you do not execute your pit stop with your teammates, when you do, you could be in a lot of trouble. And the last point, keep your car clean, something that Tyler told us about earlier in the in-race reporter interview prior to the green flag. So those are the Keelan's keys to the race. Hopefully we've got Keelan back in the broadcast booth next week at Darlington Raceway.
And he was supposed to be up. And I was going to say, he was supposed to be here on the racetrack here tonight with us. He was going to make his second start. He made his debut at Indianapolis alongside with me. Didn't have an ideal result there, but he was definitely looking forward to being a part of the field here today.
It was. Hopefully he'll be able to make another start down the line, whether it be at another super speedway or at a different track. Left side of your screen, the battle for the race lead, which is non-existent right now. Single file between Brandon Hawkins, Steven Stempian, and basically the rest of this main pack. And all the way in the back is that Drinkin' Bros Racing group, starting with the Cody Kinsey machine. You've got Lawson Peel, Eric Schaefer, and the lot. All of them, Francisco, are doing somewhat what they did in the last super speedway race here at this track, was stay back. They let everyone up the road, get a bit of distance on them, but as long as they could stay in touch with the main pack, with the draft, that is good news for them, and it appears it's working quite well, but all of them mired back in track position, waiting for this race to tell them what to do next.
And this is part of the strategy that you can do at a super speedway. You could just hang back and let it come to you, or try and be aggressive and work your way up to the front. Most of the front runners are trying to keep it single file, not really do anything too outlandish. You see an inside lane has now formed up, being led by Kyle Benson and Tyler Murray. Not shocking to see those two make some noise at the super speedway. Those two traditionally are always the ones making the aggressive moves and are the ones that work together to break away from the pack to win the race for Tyler Murray here the last time we visited Talladega in this series. So those two have made that inside lane work. They're actually moving up, and look at that. It looks like enough people are paying attention to it because Juan Escamilla jumps down in front of them and is looking to get some momentum from these guys to challenge for the top spot.
Escamilla, who flipped over in his debut race in 4 wide at Daytona, with Ethan Fonseca Moreno behind him, is looking for a better charge this time around to the inside. He'll catch up to third place Curtis Kelly, and it'll only be a little while before he sees Brandon Hawkins on his right side. Escamilla looking for the lead in turn 4.
And he's got it. He is cleared for the top spot as Hawkins trying to see if he can rely on the push from the number 8, but it's Kyle Benson and Tyler Murray that are giving the push to your new race leader, Juan Escamilla.
beautiful push by the Ford Mustang dark horses that all seem to be working down low. The only other manufacturers are at the tail end of this. Jaden Porter in a Chevrolet, Steven Maggio in a Toyota, and then a final car in a Chevrolet as well. So you look at all of those guys, it's Kip Easley there in that Menard Chevrolet back there. All of them, for the most part, Ford Mustangs, either for Murray Reedy Motorsports or that Dark Horse Motorsports camp that we've seen be pretty strong over the course of the year. AJ Green, who has fallen a lap down, he is stuffing up Brandon Hawken right now on the outside, and we may make it almost 3 wide. Kyle Benson looked up there for a moment, cannot make it happen, and AJ Green will help Brandon Hawken get back in the fight for P1 down to the Trioval.
And it's actually AJ Green, the one that's side by side with him. So for now, Escamilla keeps the top spot. And look at Rodney Roberts to the outside of Curtis Kelly to take it 3 wide.
That's Austin Reedy there in that Canes machine at the very top of the racetrack with Roberts right in front of him. Austin did back down to the inside to try and make something work underneath the main leaders, and now they're 3 wide. Curtis Kelly will be left to dry by himself in the middle lane, and everyone around him will start to surround and make their own set of noises. The inside line, though, has built up dramatically, Francisco, something that we didn't see over the first 5 or so laps, but as the outside line takes control, they'll float down to the yellow line. They know what's going on the inside, and it's working.
And now they're fluctuating between each line because there's such enough parity between a line on each end of the racetrack that you see the leaders are now willing to move up with a line depending on how well it does. And looks like Austin Reedy's going to leave Rodney Roberts out. So after making some good progress, the 20 car is going to move to the back end of this lead draft. And now he's going to have to figure out something once again. But Juan Escamilla now moves to the upper side of this racetrack. He still has help from Kyle Benson, but now Tyler Murray's on the bottom lane, trying to see if he can get clear. He won't be able to do so, so let's just stay side by side. All this going on behind your top 2, which are now putting AJ Green, the last car on the lead lap, but leading the field.
And what this will do, Francisco, it could help that Drinkin' Bros Racing train that's the secondary pack, several seconds behind Craig Lounslauger and Rodney Roberts as some of the last cars in the main pack. I could let them catch up, but I guess if you're adding more numbers to the tally, you're only adding more speed to build. So we'll see how that works and if DBR will fall out of reach or if they're able to stay within arm's distance and make an attack later on in the race. AJ Green continues to be the first car in the pack, although he is not the race leader. Brandon Hawken and Escamilla continue to go at it for the top spot, and Brandon Hawken tonight makes his debut super speedway appearance in 4 wide. When he made his charge late in season 6, he did not run a super speedway race, and up until this point he hadn't run a super speedway race because he wasn't here. He hadn't made his first start of season 7 when we opened the campaign in the World Center of Racing in Daytona Beach. So for Hawken, this is a first try at a super speedway race in the next gen cars. Crash 14 of Nicholas Bauman catches Jaden Porter and several others. Should we see the first caution? Yes, we do. Jaden Porter is trapped sideways in the middle of the pack off turn 4.
No significant damage on his race car, Kenneth, so he is extremely lucky to go spinning in the front of the field and not experience any kind of damage. Let's see if we could get a replay here and view for ourselves what exactly caused it. And it looks like there was some contact further up in front of him that resulted in a spin for the, I believe, the 24 and the number 14 machine. There you see the 14 of Bauman gets sent sideways. That sends the 24 into the 28. And Porter's really the one who gets the worst of it. Everybody else just is able to end up going straight, but it's Porter the one that gets sideways the most. We'll see here from up above. I think what happens here is a push from Kelly goes wrong, kind of looks to the middle, and yeah, that sends the 14 down into those two. Maggio gets a bit of a bump there, but he probably will end up fine from that, as it was not too vicious of an impact. Porter will lose the track position, but Kenneth extremely lucky not to get any kind of damage.
Looks like for the most part, everyone gets away from it. A look on board with Maggio right behind his teammate. And there's the square hit to the front end of his Toyota Camry to Nicholas Bauman's Ford Mustang. And while it isn't too much damage, I mean, that's a pretty decently sized dent on the front end of that car, and that could cost you some miles per hour down the straightaway. So that'll be a tough going at it for Maggio if he can get back on it. Brandon Hawken will lead the field on pit road. And here's a look at Brandon Banks' perspective on the right side of your screen.
And it was a close call at the last second because he follows Porter up until the last second.
Oh, wow. What a beautiful avoidance there by the Chevrolet of Brandon Banks. He's able to get away from it. Meanwhile, everyone else trying to get themselves on pit road for the first time tonight. Hawken will lead them in, and it appears here at Talladega you don't really use tires, you only search for gas. Hawken is out early. He beats Juan Escamilla out of the lane, and Escamilla does a wonderful job of getting second. And as you're seeing it, Francisco, Maggio is spending the time on pit road getting his Toyota fixed.
Yeah, just kind of paying attention to that front end, seeing how much it bulges back out. It's fixing pretty nicely as I'm sitting here watching the team go to work on that race car, Kenneth. So I think Maggio could end up fine. I mean, he had 5-6 minutes of optional damage back at Indianapolis, and at one point was going close to a lap down. Ended up recovering to that top 5 finish. Was able to see him go right back past me. He definitely had a great recovery drive, and that front end, Kenneth, looks a lot healthier now, so expect Steven Maggio to still be well in this fight.
And that's the good news, is that you have a mistake like this early in the race, or you find yourself in that little bit of trouble at lap 15. It's much better than when you encounter it at lap 84, when you don't have as much time left in the bank. Maggio will remain on pit road as it stands, and you're looking at the race leader, Brandon Hawken, who continues to patrol the field here at Talladega Super Speedway. And in our previous mention of Hawken making his first Super Speedway race in this series, in his 4-wide career, he's been obviously one of the best drivers in the field, bar none. He maintains an average finish of 1.57, the best of anyone this season and the best of anyone that we've seen in recent 4-wide memory. That includes 3 straight second-place finishes, and he also led the most laps in our last race at Indianapolis with 35, even though he could not capture the checkered flag. Lawson Peel did all the way back then. But this is good stuff for Hawken early. We know, Francisco, just how good he is at basically any type of track and how he is on the oval side of things. But to see him on a super speedway in this series is a big, monumental step for him. He's making the most of it right now.
It's going to play a huge role for Brandon, really, when we come down to the playoffs, since we know this racetrack is in the playoffs. How you run here gives you a good idea of what to expect when we show up here later in the season, but also that cutoff race at Daytona. We got the lights out on the pace car, meaning we'll be 1 lap away from getting this race restarted. And this was a good opportunity. We saw everybody on pit road topping off with fuel. Maybe some guys would end up taking 4 tires. But certainly a huge opportunity. You can get out, fill up the tank. You could probably still go another 30 laps from here, which puts you just around the halfway point in the race, which, if we did get in a situation where you get a green flag run, 2 stops is currently the minimum required, but we're always going to be paying attention to see what kind of window opens up, because I feel like every time we show up to a super speedway, at some point fuel mileage becomes an issue.
It does, and when you've got a lot of restarts, you can manage the fuel a little bit by saving, but even then, it doesn't guarantee you enough fuel to make it to the checkered flag. A little bit too early to be worrying about that right now, though. Off of our first pit stop at lap 15 or so, we'll go green at lap 17 with Brandon Hawken and Juan Escamilla on the front row. You were just getting a look earlier at Austin Reedy, who also spent a good amount of time on the pit lane and in his box. He'll be restarting in 31st. As for Maggio, who got his Toyota repaired, he'll be back in 33rd position. We know that Jaden Porter also has fallen back. He's in 26th, but did not encounter as much damage as the other cars. Porter was in a position to win the race at Talladega through strategy last season. Him and Ethan Fonseca Moreno in the Fortnite-inspired paint schemes that they ran back then. They had a chance at the lead, did lead some laps themselves, but just could not overbeat the Murray-Reedy Motorsports duo of Tyler Murray and Kyle Benson. He'll try to find some teammates out on track, but they're a little far and few in between as we see it. They're scattered all across this 34 car field that continues to run. No DNFs as of the first 16 laps. Well, Brandon Hawken is set to bring this field back underway through the Geico restart zone. He'll wait just a moment before hopping on the gas pedal. He'll light up his Chevrolet, this time by for lap 17 in our first green flag restart of the race.
And a good restart for the outside lane. Hawken remains clear of the inside if he wants to protect it. And soon enough, if Benson can keep giving him this good of a push, he'll be clear himself to move down to the bottom. So those two first, they have it now if they want it, but I think they'll stay up top because we saw on the start of the race, the outside was clear of the advantage, and look at them as they start pulling down the back straightaway. Now you have another car clear on the outside. That's going to be the Lance Hill machine, as now Benson goes to the inside.
Here comes Benson down low. He feels the help from the Dark Horse Motorsports 41 behind him. A hefty push by Escamilla will keep Benson even with Brandon Hawken at the exit of turn 4, and we did not see this in the opening jump of the race. That inside line having everyone down with them from the jump of the restart. Lance Hill will be the secondary car right behind Hawken in the chase. Back to turn 1, Kyle Benson has the race lead.
And he's getting pushed now from Juan Escamilla, Steven Stempian, and Trevor Haley. And look at Cody Kinsey working his way up there, trying to see if he can move some magic up there as Lawson Peel and Kip Beasley fill out the inside lane.
Here they go on the outside, though. Juan Escamilla makes it. Steven Stempian got bobbled out to the inside, and Kyle Benson's in the sucker hole through turn 3.
And look how much they stacked up there. When someone gets shuffled out like that in the side draft with how big of an effect it has, you can end up 3 and 4 wide so easily, but people don't want to in the checkups. That's how big wrecks get started there, Kenneth. We about had 3 wrecks on that same straightaway. We're lucky to still be green flag right now.
And it's a tug of war of decision too, Francisco, when you're behind the wheel, because you get such a big push from the driver behind you. You feel like you can't ignore it when you try to go on the inside of the car that gets bobbled out of shape. But then you also feel that there is a brewing incident on the way, so you try to get out of harm's way, and more often than not, you end up in 3 wide like Stempian did there with Kyle Benson and pushing him through the middle lane out of the conversation. Benson is able to stop the bleeding. He ends up as the 5th car on that outside line, and it's Juan Escamilla with his teammate Trevor Haley right behind. Here comes Stempian, though, back for the inside with Cody Kinsey to help.
And they just, no one really able to get an advantage here, Kenneth. They just keep having the advantage. The outside gets it done on the corner exits, but then the inside uses the straightaway to make that gap back up. You see here riding on board with Lawson Peel, who's 3rd on the inside, trying to see if he can give Cody Kinsey any help that'll offer Steven Stempian to keep that inside lane going, as they're almost 4 wide further back.
It's our Charlie Byer Photography onboard camera with the Season 4 champ of Lawson Peel, who's won the last 2 races in a row at Indianapolis and the race before then, as we've seen everyone go all the way, and we're now 3 wide, several rows deep. Lance Hill is the leader on the very outside. Christopher Bishop is the man right behind him, and you're right, Francisco, it is an absolute hornet's nest for about 10th on back.
Well, clearly these guys didn't learn. They had the incident going on, and you thought, okay, maybe that'll get them back to single file. It did not. It normally never does that in this league. Normally, once that first yellow comes, that basically is an invite for everybody to say, all right, now it's go time to go make things happen.
Well, a lot of the philosophy in super speedway racing, too, Francisco, is getting used to it, right? We talk about in practice how drivers try to get with each other and 4, 5, 6 car packs, maybe more than that, just to test out what it's going to be like in the draft. But you really never know how it's going to be until you've got all 34 cars lined up nose to tail in a 2-wide formation like this under green flag action. And for guys like Lawson Peel and Cody Kinsey, the pair of Drinkin' Bros Racing Chevrolets on the inside, they spent the bulk of that opening run at the back of the field, testing the waters and seeing what they could and couldn't do in the draft while working together. But you give them a bit of track position, and they start to launch the rocket. And here they are, 3rd and 4th on that inside lane, still pushing the Williamsport, Pennsylvania native of Kyle Benson at the front of the field, who's had his fair share of successes and failures at these super speedways. One of the most experienced drivers at this type of track leading the field.
And a winner at Daytona. So, oh, we have a spinner in the back going up the racetrack. That is Brandon Gillis.
Brandon Gillis in trouble, and several others might have been in it as well. The Ford Mustang goes hard into the outside wall, and that brings us our 2nd caution of the race at lap 22.
A push gone wrong. This time, the 14 of Nicholas Bauman was on the opposite end of that. We saw in the previous caution he'd gotten the wrongful push from the 71 of Curtis Kelly. This time it's Bauman that gives the bad push to Brandon Gillis.
We saw Bauman up in the front earlier tonight with his Dark Horse Motorsports teammates of Trevor Haley and Juan Escamilla, but it appears, yeah, the same situation that happened to Bauman for the first caution, right? Driver floating up high, then someone down on the inside. the driver up top doesn't necessarily see it, and all of a sudden, you've got a pretty decently sized crash. So look on board with Gillis in the corner.
And you see here, all is fine for him now, and then all of a sudden, right about here, boom, just gets sent sideways, has nowhere to go, and unfortunately, looks like some contact there with Kevin D'Elia.
There's D'Elia and the others trying to get away from it. We'll see if we can get a look from D'Elia's Chevrolet. And there he is on the outside with AJ Green right in front of him. And, I mean, at this point, you're trying to settle yourself in the pack. You see the trouble envelop right in front of you. And for D'Elia, just barely scrapes by, but possibly some damage on his Chevrolet.
Yeah, definitely clipped it, so that might actually do more suspension damage because it hit on the tire rather than any kind of body damage, but still something to look for in the 53, at least on this caution while you have the opportunity. But that easily could have been a lot worse than what it did, Kenneth. I think both these cautions so far could have easily been a lot worse than what they've been.
Well, after our first yellow brought the field onto pit road, it appears we're back at it again. Not that many laps later, Benson in the field will enter pit lane, possible splash of fuel, maybe some calls for tires down the lane, and the obvious damage repair for those that were involved. Benson will head in first. We'll see where he heads out. We've had mistakes before on the pit boxes where if you hop on the brakes with this next-gen car, it may not respond the way you want it to. Benson, though, with a quick dash of fuel, he's on his way. Will anyone else beat him outside of the lane? The answer for right now could be yes. Steven Stepien will beat him on the pit road.
That was close, but he definitely got that one. So Steven Stepien and that 8 crew really stepped up to give him that #1 spot.
And that is a 5.7 second stop for Steven Stepien, 6.2 for Kyle Benson. The big difference there for the Budweiser Chevrolet to get up front. He'll catch the iRacing official pace car. Will be under yellow for the second time tonight at lap number 24. Possibly the big surprise is what you're looking at, Francisco. Brandon Hawken was at the front of the field. All of a sudden, looks like some problems for the 98s, and he is trapped now in traffic. Will restart pretty deep in the field.
Probably took 4 tires, Kenneth, is really the only thing that comes to mind. He doesn't have any damage on his race car. It wasn't a particularly slow stop. He came out in the midst of several cars there, so probably just a 4-tire stop there for the driver of the 98.
Yeah, as we look at it, 14.7 for the Canadian Brandon Hawken, who's already won 3 races this season, has been on an absolute tear and could get win number 4 with the performance he's putting up tonight at Talladega. Let's dial in our KBRN in-race reporter. That is Middletown, Delaware's Tyler Murray, the league owner. Tyler, you got a copy with us?
Yes, sir.
All right, Tyler. Well, you've had a feel for what the field is like over the first 24 laps and the first 2 yellows. You've been the aggressor, though. Kyle Benson and company, you guys have been moving forward through the field with a pair of other Ford Mustangs for Dark Horse Motorsports. What have you seen behind the wheel, and what do you make of the action tonight so far?
Well, I can tell you right now, it hasn't felt like it's been 24 laps. But, yeah, we were just riding around there up top, and the checkups were just ridiculous back there. I was running about 13th, and I was just getting smoked in the rear and saw a couple of the Dark Horse guys sticking their nose out. So I was like, you know what, let's jump in front of this and see what we can do. And then got a teammate who I work well with in front of me, and kind of just locked up and pushed him to the front, and kind of went back, slipped my box on that first pit stop, and dropped back a little bit and chose to take myself out of the pack on that last one. I saw that brewing, so didn't want to be a part of that one.
Smart call, though. You're out of harm's way, and we're seeing you get a little splash of fuel here on pit road this time by. I know I kind of put you on the spot there for a moment as we were going green, but now we can actually talk about it. The paint scheme that you're wearing tonight, that you told me you weren't going to have a number with gold and blue in it because you didn't want it to seem like you're repping Notre Dame for the college football playoff semi that will happen tomorrow in the Orange Bowl, happening here in Miami. So talk to us about this paint scheme, what it's all about, and I guess your alliance to the Nittany Lions of Penn State.
Yeah, it was kind of a last-minute decision to throw the Nittany Lions on the car tonight. I wasn't going to do it because I believe in bad juju, but I was sitting there thinking to myself all day. I was like, man, I picked the Speedco car tonight. I was like, that's blue and gold. I can't support the other team either. And you know, my brother's a diehard Notre Dame fan. I'm a diehard Penn State fan. So hopefully I come out on top with the smack talk tomorrow. I get hopefully I get to rub it in and we get to go fight for a championship.
Gonna be praying for some Drew Aller supremacy, no?
Oh, absolutely. That boy's got it. Him, Katron, Nick Singleton. You're going to see an offensive display tomorrow.
All right, well, Tyler, it was fun talking to you. I guess we're getting ready for the restart here, so best of luck on track.
All right, appreciate it, guys.
That is Tyler Murray. We'll be dialing him up further on throughout this race. He is our KBRN in-race reporter tonight. And Francisco, it appears we have college paint schemes all across the board, from Murray's Penn State scheme tonight. You know, a couple weeks ago, we had at Atlanta a Nebraska Cornhuskers paint scheme with A.J. Green. We had a Tennessee Volunteers paint scheme with Lance Hill. So the college allegiance is pretty high here in 4 wide as we are doubled up for the restart at lap number 26. Extra credit if you can lead some laps here in this jump to turn 1. Steven Stepien and Kyle Benson will align the front row with Curtis Kelly and Craig Lounslager to help right behind. Barney has the green flag in hand, back underway from Talladega Superspeedway.
I'll tell you what's missing, Kenneth, and that's Miami Hurricane representation.
That's true. And even though Cam Ward didn't get the Heisman Award, we're still very much in support of what he's done for the Hurricanes. And it looks like the Orange Bowl is going to take place in Miami, so that'll be fun tomorrow night at 7:30. But back to the action. Stepien up front with Kyle Benson on the inside. And what's going to be big here, Francisco, is the pair of Murray Reedy Motorsports teammates down low. The first time we see the former Dega winner at Lounslager up front all night long, and he's giving a whale of a push to his teammate in 3 and 4.
And Benson does not get clear. Stepien is able to side draft him to bring him back into play. And look who's shown up on that inside lane, 3rd spot. It is a 20 of Rodney Roberts.
And as he got shuffled out of the pack earlier on in this race, he seemingly finds a way back in it. Rodney Roberts, the only KBueno Racing driver currently in the top 10. He'll man the inside 3rd car there. And as Curtis Kelly continues to push Stepien, it's getting him a little out ahead off of turn 2, and it may work down the Alabama Gang super stretch. Kelly, as we mentioned during the Drop in the Hammer pre-race show, Francisco, one of those top 3 in points, yet with a race win, but Kelly will be left to dry. Escamilla to the inside, looking for P2.
The first 4 or 5 cars from that outside had such a run that they have all rocketed past Kyle Benson. That has completely killed the inside lane. You can see all these cars are now abandoning it and moving up to the outside lane. Roberts just sliced up in front of Austin Reedy, a car he was working with earlier in the race. He's trying to see if he can find that hole in front of Timothy Cook to get single file, because it looks like with the run that those top 2 got, that's probably what they're going to try and aim to do, bring everybody single file.
You watch the 3 wide there with Rodney Roberts leading the pack in the middle lane. Juan Escamilla with Kyle Benson basically getting left for dry, and the 2 Drinkin' Bros Racing Chevrolets behind the Canes car. Lawson Peel in the 12, the 27 of Kip Easley, and the rest of the field is just deciding where to go.
Oh,
Roberts is
sideways
in front of the field. He'll catch Austin Reedy. Cody Kinsey gets several others involved, and there's our 3rd yellow. A big one. Crash in turn 3 with a bunch of Dark Horse Motorsports Mustangs involved.
You could see that one coming with the run that Rodney got from that push. It just forced him into the car in front of him. And we talked about this earlier. Those checkups, Kenneth, they can really lead to some incidents, and it was only a matter of time. And right here, we just saw that example of this. So here we are on the replay. He had a push here from Austin Reed. He gets a huge push and just is off center, and I think gets pushed at the same time he gets into Dixon, and that sends them all spinning to the inside. He doesn't appear to get much more damage than the initial contact, but then right here, these cars that kind of converge here on the apron of the racetrack actually gets clipped right there at the end. So all those cars that converge on the main part of the racetrack are the ones that struggle to get away. Bishop actually unable really to get going there for a bit, was unable to get off the apron.
And there's Trevor Haley getting hooked at the last second. Jaden Porter up the wall. Christopher Bishop, Steven Maggio. There's Tyler Murray with nowhere to go. It's a track blocker in turn 3. Ryan Pandicio, Kyle Benson basically at a dead stop to get away from it. Tons of front-end suspension damage for Juan Escamilla, who flipped over at Daytona. Now with suspension damage and possibly a big obstacle to get back to the front at Talladega tonight. We'll see if we can get a better look at it this time from Nicholas Bauman's front end. He missed all of this somehow. While his teammates found peril, Bauman finds an open racetrack. Take a look.
See right here, just riding behind Craig Lounslager. And what a move for Lautenschlager too, from as a matter of fact, Kenneth.
Both of the Ford Mustangs getting out of it, and Jaden Porter, who was involved in our opening yellow, was on the outside with nowhere to be until he found some space and just got away from it. Here's a look with Porter on how he got away from the scuffle.
Yeah, just right here in the thick of the chaos. The contact starts right about there with Reedy and Roberts, and there you see the contact happens. There's more spinning back up the racetrack. And I think he gets hit in the rear there by the sound of it. He probably got clipped in the rear, but doesn't look like it's too big of a damage on him.
So Porter escapes. Lots of other drivers unfortunate in their encounter with this big crash. Our third caution at lap 30. We're barely into this race at all. And already we've taken out several of those cars. That's a big blow, Francisco, to all of those guys at Dark Horse Motorsports. The amount of drivers they had in the field. I mean, you look at Austin Reedy, who was strong early on with right front toe link damage. Brandon Banks, who's won 3 Talladega races in his 4-wide career, is on pit road getting his car fixed. A ton of big names. It's either taken out or severely wounded in this crash. That'll bring us under the yellow with Curtis Kelly at the front of this field.
And how about the car that got the push that sent this all awry? Brian Dixon running in the 3rd spot. Finished 3rd at Daytona. And he's right now at least running in the 3rd position. Timothy Cook, who got a top 5, I believe, in that race as well, is also in the top 5 right now. So a couple of guys getting their opportunity at the front of the field under this caution. But you mentioned it there just a moment ago, Kenneth, that Dark Horse, the run that they had going on, and now they have damaged race cars. The same thing could be said about Daytona. Dark Horse Racing, they dominated the Daytona opening race, and it wasn't until the last 10 or so laps after that late caution from Lawson Peel where the race really slipped away from them, and they got involved in a couple of wrecks, and that kind of threw away their big opportunity as a collective. And at least early on in this one, that it's already happened.
So you find the early strength from Dark Horse Motorsports, and that seems to be the storyline regardless of the race, is how strong they are early, but how they just cannot cultivate a good finish at the end. And this time it's just bad luck with the crash that happens in front of them. Kyle Benson and a bunch of others are on pit road, Craig Lautenschlager included, and you're watching 4th place Timothy Cook, who with Brian Dixon and several others have a chance to lead this race early on. And as Daniel Moore mentioned it, a lot of these drivers who have spent a majority of this season, at the back of the field or just getting their bearings together in Season 7, their best finishes have come at a super speedway. Timothy Cook's best finish this season was 8th, and it was in the debut race at Daytona to kick off the year. So, a lot of these guys have a second breath of life in this moment where they could start to lead some laps and find that experience running up front. As another look at some of those guys who have pitted, Lawson Peel being one of them. So it appears a mix, Francisco, of strategic calls to top off on gas. And if we stay green, this could be the ultimate difference maker in the strategy.
A top off here, Kenneth, under this caution could make this a potential one-stop race, and all you need is the potential. We've seen fuel mileage not be an issue for many drivers this season. The opportunities to save fuel have persisted time and time again, so if the opportunity presents itself, it has just opened that door of being able to pit just one more time from here. It's going to take a lot because we still have 63 laps to go. It'll be when we take the green. That is not necessarily a given on the full tanks that we have here with 75% fuel. It just gives you the opportunity to do so.
You can go at least 30 to 35 laps, give or take, on a tank of gas with 75% fuel. So, you're cutting it close, though. If you're guys like Lawson, Peel, and company pitting now, you're going to have to save enough fuel to just barely get into that fuel window to make that final stop and get to lap 94. But as we've seen early on, tons of chaos, lots of yellow flags. So if the trend continues, strategy may not just be the focal point. It will be who can survive at the end of this race that may turn attrition filled. We have one driver out tonight. That is the 88 of Mikey Neal calling it quits. He's in 33rd place. Well, it's not stonks, but still kind of stonks on the front row here. Shake up for this next restart at lap 32. Curtis Kelly and Adam Alishire to the green flag.
And look, already a little bit further back, moves for 3 wide. Lance Hill already to the outside as they're trying to go past the 19 of Timothy Cook, who's dropping like a rock.
He is falling through the mid portion of the field with absolutely no help And as Adam Alashar controls that outside lane, they are shuffling all over the place down the Alabama gang super stretch, and it is Nicholas Bauman looking for the lead in turn 3.
And he's got help from Steven Stempian. Kip easily finds himself up in the top 5. Who does he go with? As Adam Alashar is going to go with that outside group, and so is Lance Hill.
And there's Ryan Pandiccio, that purple Ford Mustang dark horse in the background. His best finish was at one of these super speedways at Daytona. And the outside with AJ Green to follow, and 5 cars on the inside lane, a bulk of them Chevrolets. Bauman will take control of the race with 32 laps in the books. And the question is whether Steven Stempian decides to move down low, or whether he'll sort of de facto push Bauman out of the way for the race lead.
He's going to probably sit in that back for now. I mean, when Steven's been in second to no matter who it's been, he's kind of been willing to ride around for a while, so expect that 8 car to maybe sit back for now.
Charlie Byer Photography onboard camera with Bauman, and you can see the 2-wide action that goes all the way back to Tyler Murray, who leads the end of the first pack, and then it's everyone in that second group single file with a couple of drivers in the background doing their bidding, either damaged race cars or those that just do not have the track position to make up for it right now as we get to the approaching halfway mark of tonight's race from Talladega, and it is Nicholas Bauman at the front. How about the effort from Bauman here, Francisco? From being involved in the first caution, it almost looked like his race was going to go awry, but it seems like now it's working for him. He's got the clean air and Stempian right behind, but he's got to be real careful. That 8 car is giving pushes down the straightaways with no remorse.
Well, we saw Bauman be in contention at the end of the Daytona race. It was one of the few remaining dark horse cars there. Had a shot on the final lap, but just unfortunately for him, it just didn't work out in his way. He's trying to see if he can learn from the race winner of that one to give himself an opportunity to win it again.
And here comes Kelly down the inside. He's got the help from the Chevrolet behind of Brian Dixon with a brand new paint scheme tonight. One that I haven't seen since the drop of the green flag at Daytona. Dixon was one of those dual winners to get him a spot on the front row. And for most of the season, the Buick Esports car has been colored in purple and black. But tonight, giving more of a Casey Kane-inspired paint scheme when he used to have Mopar on his cars back in the day when he drove some of those Dodges in the NASCAR Cup Series. Beautiful look for the Buick Esports Chevrolet tonight, and doing what he can to get the 5-hour energy car ahead of him, Curtis Kelly, to the race lead with Kip Easley, 3rd car behind, which should be a dark horse to watch for, Francisco. Not often have we talked about Easley this season, but he is making waves already inside the top 5.
Yeah, Kip Easley found himself up inside the top 10 for most of the evening here tonight, so a good run going for the 27, looking to build on what he had good going for him at Daytona. At Daytona, he also had a strong run, so Kip Easley trying to make a name for himself as a super speedway driver.
One of those guys for Drinkin' Bros Racing, and we noted him as a guy that was working with Lawson Peel plenty early on in this race, and his best career finish in 4-wide was his first race at Daytona. He finished second to the winner, Steven Stempian, at the white flag lap. So something for Easley to be said there about his specialty to super speedway and his ability to survive. Has a lot of experience with the guys around him. They were used to race the Sunoco Cup Series that did fold, but is going to be revived here on the KBueno Racing Network with the drop in the Hammer Cup Series, and controls this 3-car grouping with Lawson Peel and several others right behind. We'll take a look at the second pack as it brews. There it is, starting single file. Francisco, what have you noted about these guys nose to tail at the back end of the field?
It's led by Michael Newbro, who's currently in the 17th position, and they're about a second behind the main pack. And again, it mostly consists of some DBR drivers back there, but a couple of dash of BBR drivers as well. You looked in there, Jaden Porter and Steven Maggio. Trevor Haley, dark horse drivers there. So most of the people involved in the most recent caution are here as well. So I think they're just trying to play it safe. Maybe not fully repaired cars, but certainly trying to play it safe.
A lot of those cars wounded. I guess they're just hoping that another yellow flag does not fly, or if it does, it'll give them enough ample time to head down pit road and get their cars fixed. There's Stempian floating up the racetrack in the attempt to get some of that clean air. He'll push Bauman to the front once again at the tri-oval, and Bauman will continue to lead this race at the cross of the line for lap number 38. Well, as we continue green here at Talladega, why don't we crank it up on the KBueno Racing Network? Beautiful sights and sounds from this big track, Talladega Super Speedway, and many looks from all those in the field. We just noticed, Francisco, we've got a singular train of cars. All of those guys that were trapped behind this main pack, they've converged, so now they're all together, single file. The likes of Jaden Porter and company have caught back up, so it is now a fluid first initial pack that goes all the way back to beneath the top 25. And Eric Schaefer and P26, a long line of cars at lap 42 as we approach halfway.
And cars that lost the draft include the 20 of Rodney Roberts and the 77 of Daniel Moore, and the 82 of Eric Stewart. There's Eric Stewart and Rodney Roberts that are running together on the racetrack, so at least they're not completely by themselves, but they are 11 seconds off your race leaders. And Daniel Moore, who's currently on the verge of going a lap down, he's just ahead of this lead group.
And when you fall a lap down at Talladega, you could be in a myriad of trouble. We saw that AJ Green sort of escaped that earlier in the race, where he just stayed up front and could hold on to a lead lap position before the chaos came out. But as Daniel Moore sits by himself on the racetrack, chances are he'll let the entire field by. They're all single file, so it'll be really tough for him to blend into this pack without getting absolutely freight trained by the group ahead of them, no pun intended, with a CSX car leading the field. But for Daniel Moore, he may be a car added to the one lap down list. We did get a note that Mikey Neal is back out on the racetrack. We anticipated he was a DNF, but on ATVO and our timing and scoring looked like he was out, but he is in, 4 laps down in 30 seconds. So as we stand, all 34 cars are still entered into this race without a single DNF, and there's Daniel Moore getting lapped by the pack now.
Juan Escamilla is probably the one that might DNF. I mean, he's still showing up in the garage trying to make the repairs to his car. It's some significant damages to the driver of the 41, 15 laps down, but he still sits there. So maybe he goes back out, maybe tries to complete more laps, but yeah, it's not looking pretty for the 41.
He'll stay on pit road. Again, all of that tolling damage given to him in that big crash with his fellow Dark Horse Motorsports teammates. I mean, he's had the ugliest hits out of all of them if it wasn't Trevor Haley and company. So it looks like he's going to be out, but he's definitely not giving up. That's something you can give him, Francisco, after getting completely eliminated from Daytona after going on his roof. I mean, it was a really tough start of the season for him. He's definitely picked it back up. No race wins, but plenty of good finishes to talk about. And the super speedways not really dealing him the good luck this time at Talladega. In fact, it's a curse for Escamilla this time around. There's Nicholas Baumann as he continues to lead this field at the cross of the line for lap 45. We will keep an eye on the difference in strategy between those at the front and those mixed into the group. It's a difference of about 6 laps or 7. For most of them, your race leader has gone 22 laps green on his tank, while Stempian right behind pitted 16 laps ago. So there is a difference on how much fuel they have, and with Baumann burning the most fuel up front, it may not be the best look for him. And there's a look on board with Tyler Murray sitting all the way back in 13th.
Yeah, it's outside of the top 10. It's been a quiet evening for the driver of the 36, but he sits behind a couple of teammates of his and is waiting for the opportunity to strike. We mentioned the different pit stop strategies, guys that pitted a little bit later, and some that decided to stay out on the most recent caution. Those that stayed out could be seeing pit road in about 10 laps or so, and those that pitted, Kenneth, they could still go another 15 or so at best. So it certainly opens up that window of being able to make one pit stop if you are those that pitted on the most recent caution. But I think just pitting all together with the most amount of cars is going to be the best way to go in reducing your time losses on pit road.
And like we noted with the Keelan's keys to the race, as I should say, you got to keep a keen eye on the strategy. And if we encounter our first bit of green flag pit stops tonight, you see the look of the field in front of you, and you see a very diverse selection of teams. You know, some of the not stonks, but still kind of stonks drivers are together, so you can figure they come down pit road with themselves and find themselves in a good group. But if you're anyone else kind of working by yourself right now, what is the play if this decides to go down a green flag strategy?
It depends on which side you're on. I think if you are on those that have to pit earlier, I don't think you'd want to wait as late as possible to actually make that pit stop. I think you guard yourself against the yellow, and you could probably bring it down pit road as soon as possible. But if you're one of the drivers that pitted later, obviously you want to give yourself the most amount of opportunity of going in much later, delaying the time in which you make that last pit stop in, so you can give yourself the best opportunity of making that last run the most amount doable, so that you can get to the end of the race with that one stop.
We'll see how it all shakes out, but at the moment, it is nose to tail, single file throughout the field. But it's been definitely a fun one. Nicholas Baumann continues to lead this race as the rookie, with Steven Stempien right behind him and plenty of strategy to go. You're tuned in to the 4Wide Racing TJ's Team Series from the virtual Talladega Superspeedway.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head to head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
My name is Francisco Bacallao, driver of the number 30 Celsius Toyota. I have a lot of things to balance between work, being a student pilot, and of course, having iRacing to do on the side. How do I manage all that? Celsius.
Celsius is the key to getting these things done for me. Whether it's at work, at home, while I'm driving, whatever. Whichever flavor you want, whichever one appeals to you best, that's the one that gets it done.
So if you want a good option to drink, choose Celsius.
Welcome back to the virtual Talladega Superspeedway. Coverage of the 4Wide Racing TJ's Team Series is brought to you by iRacing. To get your sim racing career started today, log on to iRacing.com. By TJ's Team. To learn more about the Foundation's mission to end pediatric cancer, go to www.morethanacape.org. And by Paul's Setup Shop. Well, ever since our first 3 yellows of the race, we have gone green, and here's what the field looks like now. Nicholas Baumann continues to lead over Steven Stempien, Lance Hill, Curtis Kelly, and Ryan Pandicio in your current top 5. And welcome back to our coverage on the KBueno Racing Network. Kenneth Bueno and Francisco Bacallao with you in the broadcast booth. We are now just about 41 laps to go until the end of this race. Francisco, green flag strategy is upon us. What do you see happening here?
Green flag pit stops are imminent for the drivers that stayed out on the last caution. It could happen on this lap, as you see most of these guys that or on that strategy are now starting to make their way to the bottom of the racetrack. Expect the stops to happen right now.
Looks like they're down at the bottom. Steven Stepien was giving some space to Bauman, and here they come. Down pit road, it's about 5 cars deep with Bauman, Kelly, Hill, Alashire, and Brian Dixon all on the pit lane for the first time tonight. Under green.
And all that, while that's going on, Stepien got shuffled out, and now it's Pandiscio that goes to the front.
First time we see Ryan Pandiscio lead some laps. The Massachusetts native will get some time up front with AJ Green, his Technical Alliance teammate behind him, Brandon Hawken in third. And these are all de facto teammates, unless you count Mikey Neal, who's part of Buckeye Racing, who is several laps down. But Kevin D'Elia is back there for non-stonks, but still kind of stonks. So all of them with a prime chance to come down pit road together. Ryan Pandiscio will look to lead at least 1 lap here with 40 laps to go. And as they come down to the inside lane, no takers except for one, Timothy Cook in the back.
That's not going to end up working out for Timothy pitting on his own like this. So we'll see what happens to the 19 as the cycle completely wears through. But you can expect the rest of the cars in about 5 to 8 laps on their particular fuel runs, which could put them somewhere around lap 61, 62. It's going to be very tight, but certainly borderline. Certainly whoever leads that pack, if they lead extensively, will not be able to make it.
And there's a look at the guys on the right side of your screen that basically just came down pit road with Lance Hill, with Kelly, with Alashire, and with the former race leader of Nicholas Bauman. They have found each other, which is good news, and that's something that could really break up a momentous run at a super speedway as big as Talladega. If you come down pit road with a group, you got to make it an emphasis to come out with that same group or find a way to build a group of cars together, because draft means everything. If you're going to be the single car by yourself on the racetrack, you may as well be good as a lap down or more. So we'll keep an eye on the 4 drivers there and what they do as a result of those guys up front that decided to pit a little later on than everyone else. They're extending this run 27 laps as it stands, and they have built a solid gap back to 6th place. Kyle Benson, who leads another pack behind him.
Maybe some fuel saving going on here at the end of the run by some of these guys to try and split how much they have to save on that last run. We've seen Kyle Benson work this kind of strategy just last season with teammate Tyler Murray to win them that race. That's probably what they're doing here, just trying to back off a little bit more to buy them that extra couple of sprinkles of fuel that could play a role here on lap 94.
They've got the teammates behind as well, Craig Lautenschlager, Tyler Murray, and you've also got several other drivers who have been a part of this series for a while, and they may give a helping hand right now when there's still time left in this race. It may not be the same when there's at least under 5 laps to go, but for the most part, they've got everything locked in, and they are catching up the group of cars that just exited turn 2. They're running the higher lane, and they're getting around the lap car Daniel Moore. They're about to get by Brian Dixon and Timothy Cook, who unfortunately got held back on strategy. So this group of cars may end up catching to the main pack and make it a proper fight. And Francisco, one thing that drivers can do on green flag pit stop strategy is get the pass complete and then come down pit road with at least the nose ahead.
They can do it that way, or they can get down pit road and make the pass that way. So overcut, undercut, all of those things are going to be an option here.
Well, it's scary though, Francisco. I mean, we've seen plenty of times when you're off of turn 4 going about 192 miles an hour, you start hopping on the brakes and you see somebody just fly on the either inside or outside. They make the pass before you enter pit road. We've seen it happen before, but it's scary business. I don't know if I could ever do that on the racetrack without either overshooting pit road or crashing into a car and doing what Jimmy Johnson had done to him in the 2019 Daytona 500, if you remember that. But
or Quinn Houff.
Exactly what happened there. But so far, no takers on pit road as of lap 58, and it appears Benson and Lautenschlager are just slowly starting to creep ahead of Tyler Murray. They're building a gap quite a bit, but still no takers between any of these guys that came down pit road. And it's fun to see the differentiation, Francisco, of times on their last pit stop. When you look at Ryan Pandiscio, his last stop was 15 seconds flat, which tells you, for the most part, tires and fuel all across the board. AJ Green, splash of fuel at 4.7 seconds. Brandon Hawken, a splash of fuel at 5.4 seconds. And then you look at 4th place, Kevin D'Elia. You want to guess how long he spent on pit road last time he was there?
Come on, letting us know.
40.2 seconds. Lots of damage repair, and here he is in the top 5.
Well, you just got just about everything going on here as some more cars, I believe, just one by one have sprinkled their way onto pit road. Rodney Roberts actually being one of them, but he gets lapped now by this main group. So a couple cars going a lap down now, making their green flag pit stops. But most importantly, Kenneth, that 4-car group that has stuck together have kind of maintained the gap they had to the lead draft. They were about 44 seconds back when they got up to speed finally on their run, and now they're 44.2 seconds back. So no significant enough change there to make noteworthy of, but the fact that they've maintained is not necessarily hurting their chances either.
It's keeping them in the fight, though. I mean, at least if a caution does come out, you could find yourself, if you're in that group, with a chance to get back to the lead pack and make it a difference. You're not falling a lap down. I think that's going to be the biggest emphasis for all those guys. And now here's one taker. Steven Stempien, surprisingly, all by himself, locked up the race car. Could be a pit road speeding penalty for the Boston native.
Yeah, that probably is going to be one, Kenneth. That was pretty deep in there. He was still locking them up several hundred feet into the pit lane. Expect the number 8 here to have some kind of penalty.
He'll enter his pit stall. It looks like he'll barely miss it. Kicks it into reverse for a split second. He's bearing the Dale Earnhardt Jr. paint scheme. Obviously, Dale had made it so famous, the Budweiser colors over his career, but most notably here in Talladega, where he won several races in a row at this super speedway, and then got fined for cussing in victory lane, but that's a different story. Took him out of the chase that year, give or take. But as we watch Pandicio and company come in this time by, it's going to be important on if they stay together. Pandicio with a slight hiccup. You almost saved the race car. Got it nearly into the inside wall. And Brandon Hawken will nose ahead at the entry to the pit lane for the leaders with 33 laps to go.
And the race lead gets handed over to Kip Easley, who has a lapped Mikey Neal in front of him, as now Kyle Benson, Craig Lounslunger, Tyler Murray make a huge run to the outside.
Well, here they go. They made a similar move to get ahead of the pack last season. That's what got them on the best strategy to win the race. And it is Benson, Lounslunger, Murray to command in turn 3.
And let's see how many more laps they can go, Kenneth, because most of the guys that have just stopped on this last sequence pitted at the end of lap 61. That's going to make it about 33 laps they'll have to go. And here we have some more cars pitting now. It looks like it's the rest of the group. They're going to have to try and do it on 32 laps. Not quite everybody made their way into the lane here, but a majority did. Just looking to see as who's all stayed on. Actually, that is all the rest of the leaders, so this will complete the cycle.
And with this strategy call from the group that just came down pit road now, it is viable to make it down on this last stop alone. 32 laps in the draft is easily possible, and that'll leave Nicholas Baumann with the opportunity to take back the race lead on the massive undercut strategy by about 6 or 7 laps. That's the difference again that we talked about before the pit stops ensued. And with 32 laps to go, make it 31 at the stripe, Nicholas Baumann may have control of the lead. Craig Lounslunger has escaped pit road with the lead of this group. Lawson Peel, Kyle Benson, Austin Reedy behind them. And so as Baumann and company will get around, they will have to clench their teeth for the next several minutes, because as this pack gets up to full song, it's going to be dangerous.
I think the more dangerous thing about this second pack is not if they get it to full sunk, and I think it's the fact that I think these guys are probably safe to be able to get to the end of the race. I think Craig Lounslunger might need somebody to get in front of him to stand a chance at getting to the end, but certainly anybody that has a draft on that group could definitely get to the end of the race on fuel. Everybody else, he's going to have to save, and if you're this group of Baumann, Alshire, Hill, and Kelly, they're going to have to pit again.
And it makes it all the much easier when you're Lounslunger and company and you can see about a second up the road AJ Green and Ryan Pandicio, who's at 6th and 7th at the tail end of the first pack of cars. So not necessarily a big obstacle they'll have to overcome, as they have the upper hand on strategy. But they got to hope for at least a green flag race for the next 30, which is a tough task to have happen here at Talladega. They get around Steven Stempien, at least the main pack does, and that's a big blow to the Daytona winner, who was forced to pit by himself. And as it came down to his actual pit stop, he was in there for 54.7 seconds. So Francisco, we called it correctly. Our consensus call was a speeding penalty. Race control Deltimate. Stempien now 1 lap down in 26th.
It's not over for him yet. If a caution comes out, he is in the free pass position. He's racing against Brandon Gillis and Kevin D'Elia currently for a spot to get back on the lead lap. He just has to hope that Rodney Roberts doesn't go a lap down. He's currently running by himself, and Christopher Bishop, just a couple seconds in front of Roberts, is riding around Brandon Gillis, but he's also a bit of a ways closer to the race leader. So the number 8 is going to hope for a yellow soon enough.
And there's Craig Lautenslager nearly getting away from Ryan Pandicio. He had enough to get to the inside of AJ Green and break up that small pack of cars that has Stempien in it with a chance to unlap himself. They're wiggling down the back straightaway, but still in a prime position to keep themselves at least in touch with all of these guys. And for Lautenslager, we know he's found his way to success here at Dega before with much higher stakes. The last time he won here at this track, really the only time he did, was to get him a spot into the Championship 5 at Homestead of Miami Speedway. This time it's only for a lock into the 4-wide playoffs, but Lautenslager, who's been in the series for a while, would definitely like some. He's only had several top 10s this season, 2 of them. Won a 7th place finish in a chaotic New Hampshire race, and then 8th at the road course at Watkins Glen, but not as much success since then. And Francisco, for Lautenslager, as long as he can keep his teammates in tow and find himself at a right spot, like we say, a win could turn around everything for a driver, no matter who you are.
Exactly. That is absolutely the case, Kenneth. And if you look inside your top 5 in particular, there's a handful of guys that have never won in 4-wide. Your race leader, Nicholas Baumann, has never won. Rookie driver Curtis Kelly has been a veteran for this series for a while now, and he's never gotten to victory lane in the Cup Series. And you look a little bit further down into 7th, Ryan Pandicio, sophomore driver, has never been to victory lane. So there's still some opportunities for guys to capture first career wins. But there's also your handful of guys here who have not won in a while. Adam Alexander, I believe he hasn't gone to victory lane since Daytona this past season. And the Xfinity Series cars, Lance Hill has not won in a couple of seasons as well. And you look down at AJ Green, who had a winless season 6 along with his teammate Colin Forster. They're looking to get back into victory lane over at the Fox camp.
And when I talked with Lawson Peel several days ago about the Big 3 conversation and how his entire season has gone, when we mentioned the idea of the Big 3, and he said that other drivers are out there strong enough to take a victory in this series as the regular season rolls on, he name-dropped AJ Green and said that he's due for a win. It's been such a long time since the Clemens, North Carolina native has found himself in a place to win a race in 4-wide. His teammate Lance Hill hasn't won since Road America back in Season 4. It's been a rather long while for Hill. And for Green in the same boat, who hasn't won in over a season. I mean, it'll be huge to see if he can get the win. But again, it's all about putting yourself in the prime position. And under strategy, they are not in the best place. It's where Lautenslager, Peel, Benson, and all those other guys sit with the extra upper hand and the extra fuel in the tank. Here's a challenge for the race lead. Baumann gets up too high on the banking, and Adam Aleshire steals the top spot.
They get racing amongst each other. It's not going to help them, but I don't think they're in the best strategy right now. Those guys have to come back down pit road, whilst the competition may not have to, as a little bit of a block there from Baumann on Stempien trying to keep the number 8 behind him, but those are the only 2 cars on the outside lane right now, as Baumann has fallen all the way outside, going to fall outside the top 10.
Charlie Byer photography on board camera with the Sunbury, Ohio native of Adam Aleshire as he gets the push from Lance Hill down the Alabama Gang Superstretch. And one thing you don't see in that rear view mirror, or at least this rear view camera, double file action other than where Nicholas Baumann is as he gets shuffled out along with Steven Stempien. The last car in this group, as we see it, is Kevin D'Elia, who right now on the timing and scoring, as we see it, is sitting all the way back in 28th position. He's 2 laps down, so he does not have an effect on the drivers right in front of him. But then the next driver in line, that goes all the way back to Cody Kinsey and Mikey Neal. They are over 5 seconds back of the race leaders, and this pack has many big-time drivers in it. Eric Schaefer, who's won several races in his 4-wide career. Maggio with 3 wins this season. Trevor Haley, who has found his Ford Mustang back in the action. And our in-race reporter, Tyler Murray, former Talladega winner at the back of it.
This group easily has enough fuel to get to the end, Kenneth. I just don't think they have enough cars in them and enough power in them to go chase down that pack. They've actually lost just a little bit of time since they've exited pit road, so it's not in their favor right now to just get up there and make the passes, but if they buy their time, they will gain those positions from the cars that still have to pit.
There's a look on the left screen at what's going on at the front, getting around some lap traffic. Christopher Bishop, the Brandon Gillis car that spun earlier on in the race. And then the aforementioned Daniel Moore, who went more than a lap down a little while ago. On the right side is where that secondary pack kicks in with Cody Kinsey, Eric Schaefer, Maggio, and the rest of them. So it'll be a tough task for them. And I think the biggest thing they'll need is a caution, and that could have been one. Hip checking down the back straightaway. Tony Kivitt and Adam Alishire nearly find trouble. Oh,
and that was a close call at the front of the field. Wow.
What happened there? Tony Kivitt was all by himself in clear track with nothing but the pack behind him. And it is a peculiar situation to where Alishire and Kivitt get into each other. It gets Alishire out of shape. It gets none of them sideways, but that is a scare.
Wow. I'm not sure why the 76 drifted up there. I mean, when you're getting lapped there, it's pretty easy to hold the line, especially as the single file. So I'm not too sure what happened here. Watch the just drifts up a little bit and boom.
And there's nothing you could do there if you're Alishire. I mean, you're just holding on for dear life at
Right.
that point. You're seeing the 76 crawl up the racetrack. You're saying, what are you doing? You're a lapped car. And they make the contact. Luckily, the draft doesn't break up. Hill and the rest of the field check up in enough time to avoid a catastrophe down the Alabama Gang super stretch. But with 22 laps to go, it could have been an answered prayer for all those in the secondary pack.
100% spot on the what are you doing is definitely going to be what Adam Alishire said in that situation. It's not what you expect from a lap car in that situation, especially as look at the moves being made now. Lance Hill's going to move up top as there's some contact with AJ Green. He got sideways, but he's able to keep it going.
AJ Green sending a Mo Bamba block to Steven Stempien, and it almost cost them cars on the racetrack. Stempien now down low to try and unlap himself, racing as aggressively as he did while he was in the lead pack in second place. Curtis Kelly will give the push to Hill, letting the Chevrolet lead some laps up front, and Nicholas Baumann, all the while we saw him get shuffled back in the opening pack. He's back in it from 5th.
And the 8 is being as aggressive as he is because Rodney Roberts has actually hung on to this lead draft as well, so they're racing each other for the free pass.
A look on board with AJ Green, the Stonks Motorsports Chevrolet sitting 3rd. And there's Rodney Roberts, like you mentioned, currently in a position to get that lucky dog should the yellow flag fly. But literally all of that has cost Adam Alishire a chance at some good track position. He's getting mired back in this field. He just found himself ahead of Brandon Hawken. That is a technical teammate for not Stonks, but still kind of Stonks, but it lost them so much time. There's even a bit of left front damage on the Ohio Natives machine.
Not going to help him much, but in the draft, when he's tucked up behind someone, it's not going to be the biggest effect. I think he'll be fine for now, but we'll just have to see what happens. He's definitely not going to be happy with Tony Kivitt on that one.
And you can attribute some of that left front damage to the contact with Kivitt. I mean, that happens at about 195 miles an hour. And as Kivitt comes up the racetrack and makes the contact with Alishire, I mean, obviously nothing for Alishire to do to get away from it. And all of a sudden, he's got some damage. That costs you a lot at these super speedways, at these next gens, as aerodynamic as they've ever been in stock car racing history with the underbody, that diffuser, and the way these bodies are formed, symmetrical for the first time in NASCAR history in a while. We had plenty of years where NASCAR stock car bodies were asymmetrical to give the cars a bit of side force, but they eliminated that with the advent of the next gen. And it creates a car that depends a lot on the underbody downforce, but as well on the body downforce and that greenhouse when you're going this fast in the middle of the draft. It's Lance Hill, Curtis Kelly, AJ Green, Ryan Pandicio, and Nicholas Baumann, your top 5 with under 20 laps to go. And as we're watching the changes for track position up front, again, we cannot ignore the fight under strategy. Currently, the overcut strategy held by Craig Lounslauger, Lawson Peel, and Kyle Benson, who are 6th, 7th, and 8th on the racetrack, while everybody ahead of them may have to pit.
Not to mention the fact that we still have that second pack, which actually started to get it a little bit better organized. And when you consider the effects of that first pack, when the contact happened with Alishire and Kivit, it has allowed this second pack to really start reeling them in. They went from just about 8 seconds back to just about 5 seconds behind. So soon enough, they actually could start getting a draft off of the last car of that lead draft, which is both Jaden Porter and Kevin D'Elia.
Well, it definitely helps, Francisco, that the main pack started scuffling quite a bit when Stempian entered the mix. Alishire fell out of the race lead. Those tiny movements, as small as they look on the racetrack, they are monumental in the difference of speed between those who are organized all the way in the back and these guys here who have a lot more cars in the tank, sure, but a lot more opportunity for mistakes between the guys in the pack. And as a driver, how mentally straining is that, even when you're single file, to avoid making a mistake?
It depends which position you're in. I think it's a little bit easier if you're the leader of the race because you just have to focus about everybody behind you because generally there are going to be clear racetrack in front of you. But if you're in the middle, you're constantly thinking about, do you have to make a move or is someone going to make the move on you? And I think that's really the main gist of it, is you don't want to be the one that gets left out by someone making a move, but you also don't want to make a move and get left hung out that way.
And then you also start to think about when you have to make moves when this race comes down to it. I mean, under 10 laps to go, if we don't find ourselves with a yellow flag, we may end up having the race decided entirely by strategy. But should these guys at the front stay where they're at, let's say they have enough fuel to make it to the checkered flag, when do the moves start being made? Who's going to work together to go to the inside or outside or wherever they can make a move here at Talladega and start pushing forward? It looks like Nicholas Baumann is starting to experiment with that answer. He gets down to the inside of Ryan Pandiccio, but to the tune of slightly help behind him, and now the pack behind is starting to envelop and get all over the place. Kevin D'Elia gives the shove to Lawson Peel and almost turns him in the corner.
And that's going to cost them more time and allows the second pack to really start closing up. We're still on board here with Kevin D'Elia. They've really started nailing down these lap times because now they sit about 2 seconds behind Jaden Porter, who was one of the last cars in that lead pack. So Cody Kinsey here soon enough could get a draft off this lead group and really make things interesting at 10 laps to go.
And here comes the inside lane, led by Nicholas Baumann. Stempian right behind, Lounslogger, Benson, Reedy, Alishire, and Jaden Porter to make it many on the inside. Curtis Kelly and Lance Hill will get down low to avoid the momentum train on the inside with 15 laps to go in turn 1.
And they're 3 wide for a moment there as they try to work this out with the lap car, but immediately things have picked up in the lead draft. They went from single file, and now they're fully double wide, alternating the lead as, AJ Green's going to get turned.
AJ Green spun around in turn 2. He'll try to save it. The rest of the field gets around him, but the caution flag waves. An unbelievable save by the North Carolinian. AJ Green keeps the race car intact, but we will even the field up with another yellow.
And that one was thrown by Tyler Murray. I'm looking here at the HUD here on iRacing, Kenneth. That caution was thrown by Tyler Murray. So you could raise the question if it was a little bit premature. We saw the smoke, we saw the car sideways, but no one went around.
And it is the same deal that has brought us several cautions tonight. A faulty push from Kevin D'Elia. But watch this save. Oh my goodness.
That is incredible. In front of the pack like that, kudos AJ Green.
All of a sudden, you're leading the outside lane with a chance at the lead. You get a block sent by Curtis Kelly. You're spun around from behind. And that's a wheelman if I've ever seen it. And everyone gets around him without hitting the Chevrolet. An applauding moment for everyone involved. But now they'll have to reset, and the flames will start flying.
At least for AJ Green, he still holds on to the 6th position. I would say the biggest thing for everybody is this is definitely going to allow everybody a shot to get to the end of the scheduled distance on fuel. But it wouldn't surprise me if anybody really comes in for some fuel for overtime, especially. And this couldn't have come at a better time for Rodney Roberts, who actually is going to get the free pass over Steven Stempian. Stempian, who was fighting hard to get that lap back, and it's just going to go over to a teammate over at KBueno Racing Jr., and it's going to be Rodney Roberts that gets get the extra lap back. I think Stempy will look to stay out and get the wave run and hope for the quick caution and then top off then. As everybody starts making their way into the pit road, all the lead lap cars are going to do it.
That includes those that had the overcut strategy earlier, and they are led by Lance Hill down the stretch. And this could be an easy splash of fuel and get out of there moment, but it's the question of who will escape pit road first. We've had countless lead changes on pit road, and out first is Nicholas Baumann trying to be Lance Hill out of there, and Brandon Hawkin makes it 3 wide off pit road.
And
Wow.
it's going to be Lance Hill that takes the top spot away. Hawkin in the second, Baumann the third. Loudslugger's able to move up into fourth. And how about AJ Green gaining a spot and all that? Let's talk to him.
So he found himself sideways in the middle of the field off turn 2, and now he's got 5th place off the pit road situation. AJ, you got a copy with us?
I got a copy.
All right, AJ, I think the first question I have for you is how in the world did you save that race car in the middle of the field?
I don't know. I locked it down, and I just locked it down, and the car straightened itself out. And I'm just glad nobody hit me. I thought I was gonna get hit in the rear.
That was a Herculean effort to save that car. We almost thought you were done for, but it was a beautiful save, and you still have a chance in this race. Your last win in 4 wide came back in Season 5 at Darlington. With the situation you're in now, what would it mean if you're able to stay ahead, put yourself in that position to win tonight's race?
Well, it would be amazing knowing that the race could have been over right there, and you know, if I do get a chance to win, and I do win, that would, you know, I guess I just gotta consider myself a wheelman from now on, because I'll wield that thing.
You did. It looked like racing in the rain a bit there. So we've got about 11 laps to go, maybe 10 when we cross the start-finish line and get the restart going. You've got several drivers in front of you, one of them an affiliate teammate in Brandon Hawkin, one of them an actual teammate in Lance Hill. How do you try and maneuver your way to the front now that the pack is on a level playing field here?
Well, obviously got to find the teammates. We've all been working really well together. And then classic Stonks fashion, you know, it's every man for themselves on the white flag, and whatever happens, happens. So.
You know what? I asked Keelan Belcher earlier today what his keys to the race were tonight for Talladega. He told me, all in caps, embrace the chaos. If there's any team that knows how to do that the best, it's Stonks Motorsports. AJ, whale of a save there in the middle of the field. You're in 5th with a chance to win it. Best of luck out there.
Thank you.
That's AJ Green, who is still alive in this race and will try and push forward for his first win since Season 5, which also came down to a clutch effort. It came of the way of moving Kyle Benson out of the way on a green-white checkered attempt to win in overtime conditions. And Atlanta proved that we could end up in overtime at any track. Talladega is no different. We'll have Brandon Hawkin and Lance Hill at the head of this field. And we'll get the green with 11 laps to go. So, Francisco, my amazing analyst in this field, or in this KBRN booth, what do you see happening now? What happens with 11 laps to go and a green flag restart?
Okay, so to kind of put things into perspective, Kenneth, how often do tropical systems go outside the forecast cone?
Barely.
But they do, right?
They do. Possible, yes.
Okay, so no matter what I predict here, it is probably going to go on the outside of that forecast cone, because whatever I say, it'll do the opposite.
You basically said my research doesn't matter. The trends don't matter.
Yes, it is Talladega. That in of itself is the proper explanation.
That's the good answer that you give. If anyone ever asks you what will happen at Talladega, you got to tell them literally anything. There could be a boat that flies from the sky and wins the race. You never know what happens. I've seen a car go from 29th to the checkered flag first.
On the back straightaway.
On the back straightaway, in 2 corners. Escape the big one to win the race from 29th place. Brandon Hawkin and Lance Hill are hoping that it doesn't happen and that they're not involved should we get some carnage at the end. It will be 11 laps to go. This race decided could be under green, under yellow. A lot of time to determine what goes down in our opening race of the season from Talladega in 2025. Lance Hill, the control car, entering the Geico restart zone. He'll have Craig Lautenslager behind him with Brandon Hawkin and Nicholas Baumann on the inside lane. Green flag back in the air from Talladega, and a beautiful jump by both lanes gets them even into turn 1.
An even start there, and it's going to be Hawken with the advantage, with Bauman being a better pusher right now, and Hawken actually gets clear for the top spot. Does he think about moving up in front of Hill? He's drifting up off the bottom. A late move to block Hill.
And there goes Brandon Hawken on the outside. That opens the door for the Dark Horse Motorsports entry of Nicholas Bauman to take control on the inside. Hawken shuts Hill down for the moment, but will there be payback later? 10 laps to go at the stripe. Brandon Hawken noses ahead for the race lead in turn 4.
Bauman's not going to give up. He's going to have the help from AJ Green, who's going to be aggressive and trying to get back up there. But it's Lance Hill and Brandon Hawken that both clear the bottom lane, and Loudslugger's going to try and follow them through.
And Bauman is losing help on the inside, but the outside line may not be in a better place. Jaden Porter is starting to escape with Steven Maggio behind him, and they have a big gap to Ryan Pandiccio right in front of them. The 5th car on the outside lane. It keeps both lanes even off of turn 2. Onto the back straightaway.
Oh, the checkup.
Lance Hill is in 4 wide, 3 wide in the middle of the backstretch.
Looked like there was a moment there because it is jumbled up this pack, and the inside lane is kind of separated. Just going back here momentarily to get a look and seeing what happened, Kenneth, it was a push gone wrong from Hawken, who drifted down to the bottom, and they all checked up for no apparent reason, and that stacked them up big time.
And here comes Kyle Benson, darting down the bottom alley. AJ Green with nowhere to go. Brandon Hawken takes Lance Hill to the high skies. They're looking for 3 wide, spinner in the back. Ryan Pandiccio goes for the spill. Caution flag is out with 9 laps remaining.
Single car incident, no significant damage for the 63, and several wrecks that just about didn't happen on the laps preceding this, Kenneth, until it was finally time for someone to go around, and this time it is going to be 63 Ryan Pandiccio. How about that? Nicholas Bauman finds himself back into the front, and Jaden Porter almost gets into the outside wall there on the trial as a huge block was sent just in front of him by, I believe it was Lance Hill, but watch this. Just a bad push here from Eric Schaefer onto the 63, overcorrected on the outside, and nowhere for Steven Stemping to go.
It starts with Curtis Kelly, the 5-hour energy machine, who was right in front, and we mentioned earlier in the show about how these next-gen cars could get such big runs in the draft. Kelly has no help in front of him. Pandiccio's getting the push from Eric Schaefer, and he just gets stuck in the middle of the sandwich, and at that point the car is lost sideways into the outside wall. The Budweiser Chevrolet of Stempien with nowhere to go, and although it's only a 2-car accident, it takes away one of the stronger cars late in the going. Ryan Pandiccio sent a sizable dagger as he will have to take his car down pit road and get things fixed. Here's a look from Steven Stempien.
And you can see from his perspective just how late it was until the incident happened. Sitting right behind Rodney Roberts, doesn't even see it happen until he gets into the back of Rodney and just head on with Pandiccio.
Nowhere for Stempien to go, and he was in that position, Francisco, to where he would get the lucky dog and get back on the lead lap, and that's where he is in 23rd. But the catch-22 is that he's got a damaged Chevrolet, and we'll have to deal with that for the rest of the race if he does not elect to come back down pit road and get that car repaired, albeit it's a good decision either way. You stay out, and you can gain track position through the chaos. If you pit, you can still gain track position through all the chaos, too. And so we'll see what Stempien does. It appears he'll enter pit road. But how about the switch around for Nicholas Bauman? Francisco Bacalhau in a position to get his first career 4-wide racing win and to get a first W for the Dark Horse Motorsports team as they expanded into this season with about 4 to 5 drivers. Bauman has been through it all tonight, from spinning to bring out the opening caution to getting shuffled back in the field on their strategy. And here he is, the top dog with 7 laps to go.
And a similar position at the end of the Daytona race. He's a rookie driver, but let's see how much he learned from being in that position at Daytona that he can apply to at the end of this particular race. And Kip Easley in a similar spot as well. He's up here in the top 5. He's been in the top 5 in the second portion of this race. What can Kip Easley do to try and capture a win?
I mean, he finished second at Daytona to kick off the season behind Stempien, and it could have been different had the race not ended the way it did. And for Bauman, who got his best career 4-wide finish and Daytona in that opening race, it was P5. And the best he's yet to do is 9th place at Richmond Raceway back in late October. I mean, there is something that could be in the air for Nicholas Baumann, and how happy his teammates would be if Baumann is able to achieve this occasion. But, I mean, there is a tall task behind you, Francisco. You've got not only one of the best super speedway racers in Kyle Benson, you've got one of the best overall 4-wide racers in Brandon Hawken. You've got AJ Green, who could cure up magic at any moment. And then you've got guys like Adam Alashire, former super speedway winner. Lawson Peel is as good as they come. Jaden Porter has been knocking on the door as of late with a chance to win, and many more. There's a lot of pressure behind the wheel of that 14.
Absolutely, but I think once he takes the green flag, he won't be thinking about any of it. I think right now when you're riding around like this under caution, that's when it really can get to you, because you start thinking about just the entire situation. Put that green flag out, and he's going to be focused on trying to get back to the checkered flag first, and what looks like is going to be a restart with 5 laps.
So we'll evade overtime for now, but if we do get another yellow under green, we surely are going to head into overtime in one way or another. Our last race to end in overtime was Atlanta prior to Indianapolis that ended under green. And we've had a couple of overtime finishes this season, all of them spectacular in their own ways, but it will be our first in a super speedway since that opener at Daytona, since we haven't run many super speedways thus far. Let's get a word quickly with Kyle Benson, who sits second. Kyle, you got a copy with us? Kyle Benson, this is Kenneth Bueno in the broadcast booth. You got a copy?
Yes, sir.
All right, Kyle. Well, you're one of the kings of full-on sending it at the end of these races. What is it going to take to win tonight's race from Talladega?
We're gonna hold the throttle down and see what happens. Bauman's pretty quick. He's pretty aggressive, and usually the top lane gets the run off these restarts. So we're just gonna try to get as much as we can here and parry dog the old bottom lane.
Should this race end up in overtime situations, what are you going to try to do to put yourself in that right position with only 2 laps?
Just drive for yourself. My closest friend is probably towards the back half of the top 5, so I'm just going to try to race for myself and hopefully help a teammate out in the process.
So what I'm hearing here, Kyle, is that you're going to put your right foot down and you are not going to let it go unless you see God or the checkered flag.
Yeah, I think that's what Andy and Jan Kowiak said one time. But yeah, pretty much gonna do that. Kind of nervous here. It's like a little bit of deja vu at Daytona earlier this year, so we're gonna try to get it done here.
We'll see if you can replicate that success. Best of luck out there, Kyle.
Yep, appreciate it.
Kyle will rejoin his team. He is second on the inside of the front row. Nicholas Baumann chooses the top, and he'll work with AJ Green. Brandon Hawkins set to help Benson on the inside lane. In the first 2 rows, back in P5 is DBR's Kip Easley, P6. Lance Hill in his Chevrolet. 5 laps to go. From Talladega, we'll set the table for you. It could be a mess, though, at the end of all of this, and we may end up in overtime should we get another yellow flag. Left side of your screen, the look at the field. Right side is AJ Green. Green flag in the air with 5 laps remaining from the Talladega Superspeedway.
And there they got into the Geico restart zone, and a great launch for Baumann, who's going to get way out there and clear both rows. Let's see what AJ Green does. He's going to actually have a car slide in behind him. He's going to get a run on Baumann in turn 1.
And Brandon Hawken immediately ditched that inside lane behind Kyle Benson, so it leaves Kip Easley with the task of getting behind the Ford Mustang and making some magic. Jaden Porter has gone up high to make it 3 wide. Adam Alashire is in the middle, down the back of the pack, and Baumann continues to lead it down turn 3, shifting down the back straightaway. Baumann still in control.
And AJ Green now finds himself up in the second. Brandon Hawken up there as well. Jaden Porter trying to find his way up into the top 5 for Kyle Benson. That was the best of restarts in the world. He's trying to fight his way into the top 10. As they see a move being made there through the middle, that is actually going to be, I believe, Craig Lautenschlager trying to make something happen with Trevor Haley. Hawken moves to the bottom as Green goes for the top spot.
There goes Green down low. He's got the move to the race lead with Brandon Hawken right behind him. And Nicholas Baumann gets a shove from the 28 of Jaden Porter, but the bleeding has started. Baumann is turned right in turn 2. The field tries to get around it. I believe they've saved it. We're going to stay green.
No, they're wrecking. They're wrecking the back.
Now
The
they're
big
wrecking.
one.
Big crash. Trevor Haley and several others are caught up, swallowed in the mess. Bauman hard into the inside wall. And there it is. We are headed to overtime.
It was that situation like when you're on the highway and all those lanes all of a sudden merged and nobody had checked to see where they were, and they all merged into one another. And that all started all the way from the front straightaway. They all got a run on Bauman, left Bauman out to dry. He tried to block whatever lane he could, and Porter wasn't having any of it, just didn't lift for him, and that sends him sideways. They saved it here for the most part, and then as they merge, watch this, everybody at the same time, 5 wide. Yeah, that's just a little bit too much for us.
I believe it started there with Eric Schaefer and Bauman and Trevor Haley. I mean, they just converged in the same lane. There was nowhere for them to go. And yeah, you can pack 4 cars wide at Talladega. 5 is a big ask, and as they saved it initially, looked like everything was going to be okay until it wasn't. There's Curtis Kelly getting caught up in the mix late. Trevor Haley, who had rebounded from an earlier crash tonight, gets the dagger sent. He's out of this one. And it is basically almost everyone involved in that one that could have made an effort at the end of this one. Here's another look from the high camera shot at Bauman getting the shove from Porter at first, but it's the secondary hit that gets him out of shape.
Yeah, right there. And then all of a sudden the whole field is scattered, and then they try to get up to the top, and then you see right there just 5 wide, and that's not going to do it. Sends multiple cars spinning across the racetrack, getting some damage in the process, and that's going to impact how this race is finished. But we talked to him soon. We talked to him a couple of restarts earlier, and now he's in the lead, Kenneth, for this overtime restart. How about AJ Green?
Well, you've got a Stonks Motorsports Chevrolet at the front and a not Stonks, but still kind of Stonks Chevrolet back in second. And it was that big move off turn 4, entering turn 1, Francisco, where Hawken made the move down low. AJ Green saw it happen in the rearview mirror, and he took notice of it, dived underneath Nicholas Bauman for the lead, and that's basically what kickstarts the crash that gets our recent yellow underway, but it also gets Green the race lead, and we've got a showdown left here at Talladega with our first attempt at overtime to come. We are going to extend this race past our scheduled 94-lap distance, and we'll get to at least lap 95, 96, give or take, with how this overtime restart takes shape. We've got many names in the top 10, Francisco, and you're dialing them up for me right now. Brandon Banks, Steven Maggio is back in it after getting involved in an accident early on tonight. Rodney Roberts is in 7th. Craig Parks is in 8th place. Tyler Murray, our in-race reporter, is in P10. So a lot of those guys who found trouble in this race early now have a fire left in them to extinguish for this checkered flag.
Yeah, it wasn't but about 10, 15 laps ago that Rodney Roberts was a lap down, and now he finds himself up in this top 10. And Craig Parks has had himself a quiet evening, sits behind him. He's in the 8th spot, so these guys have opportunities here. We'll see what they are able to do when we take the restart. But the one that has my eye, Kenneth, is Brandon Banks. We talked about it in the pre-race show. Keep an eye on this number 5 up until the checkered flag, because he just has a knack for finding his way up to the front.
He's got 3 Talladega wins, and if that doesn't tell you enough, then we'll show you the footage of all of those victories combined, with Banks being able to win in several different cars in different seasons. His first win here was with the next-gen car. His most recent was that regular season event here with the Xfinity Series machines. So Banks can do it all in any car, give or take. And he's right here in the top 5. And I was about to mention it as well, Francisco. The move behind Kyle Benson to shuffle in line with Steven Maggio behind, that was the big move down low. And as Hawken, AJ Green followed suit to the inside to follow that momentum, I mean, all of those names basically got brought in from the cannon on the bottom. We've expected the top lane to be the most dominant, but the inside is finding their way late in the going, as we'll set up this restart with 3 laps to go, and AJ Green will have control.
And they take the one to Green now, so Green goes to the top side, which is what gave him the run on the restart in the first place. So good choice by him to want to take that high side. Probably will communicate to Brandon Banks as far as when he'll want to go. And you can see further back behind Banks, he's going to have a teammate in Lance Hill, which is going to be useful for him. Maggio is going to line up on the bottom with Hawken and Benson. What a recovery for Maggio it's been. Your pole sitter. And I think anybody that's on the lead lap right now, Kenneth, and there's 24 of them on the lead lap, they still have a pretty decent chance of getting something done here.
So let's look at our last several Talladega winners. Our most recent, Tyler Murray. Then behind that is Brandon Banks. And then behind that is Craig Lauenslager. Behind that is Brandon Banks. None of those names are AJ Green. None of those names are Brandon Hawken. None of those names are Kyle Benson. And yet they're here to change the storyline. In Hawkins' first appearance at a super speedway, there's a chance to win it. It'll be his fourth if he can do it. For AJ, if he gets this checkered flag, it will be his first W since Season 5 at Darlington. For Kyle, of course, that Daytona race back in the playoffs got him an early start in the run for the championship. And that's the last time we saw him enter victory lane. None of those guys have won this season other than that 98 Chevrolet on the inside. So we'll get the green with 2 laps to go. And we've got 3 attempts at overtime to finish this race. If the leader catches the white flag before a caution comes out on the speedway, then we will end this race under green no matter what. If a caution does fly before the leader catches the white, we'll reset them and do it all over again. That's what's at play right now with AJ Green, the control car on the outside. Brandon Hawken left to react. It was an even restart last time by. Does it change in our first attempt to extend this race? Green to the restart zone. We're back underway from Dega. 2 laps to go.
And another great launch for your leader, and Green is going to move down immediately as Banks gets the run on him. That's going to bring Brandon Banks into play with Lance Hill. That was a questionable move by Green to move as soon as the help was coming, because watch this. Now Lance Hill, Craig Parks, and look at Murray jump to the outside.
Those are technical alliance teammates for not stonks, but still kind of stonks in Green and Hawken. Murray is all by himself in that tertiary lane, and look at Craig Parks make a run at it as Brandon Banks sends the block to the inside in turn 3.
What can the outside lane do? The inside is prevailing for now. The 48 and the 5 are tandeming together, trying to pull away from the field.
Brandon Banks has the headway, but does AJ Green flinch? He'll peek up high. Brandon Hawken is in position, right behind in third with Lance Hill to follow. We will end this race under green. White flag from Talladega.
Oh, and a sideways goes AJ Green and Brandon Hawken. They're 3 wide.
Here comes Hawken to the inside. He's got the help from the fellow Brandon in the PaulsCars.com Chevrolet. Look at Cody Kinsey. Shot out of a cannon. He's spun, and so is AJ Green. Hard into the outside wall. And who's left of it?
It's a 4-car battle.
There's Banks down low. Hawken with the block. Lance Hill up high, and Craig Parks the 4th car in line. It's 2 versus 2 and 3 and 4. And who has the
Look out for the
advantage
5.
this time? Brandon Banks wants to make it 4 wins at the Super Speedway. Brandon Hawken wants to make it 1. Final dash to the start-finish line. Lance Hill peeks down low. Brandon Hawken stays put side by side to the line. And it is Lance Hill for the first time since Season 4. He's a new winner in 4-Wide Racing Season 7.
Unofficially, Kenneth, that is 28 thousandths of a second. By my calculations, that is the 7th closest finish in 4-wide history. Unreal. Hill, with the patience there, made the move in the tri-oval, got the help in time from Banks and Parks to capture the win. Unbelievable effort. Unbelievable fight between those 2 drivers right there. And Lance Hill gets his first win in 3 seasons.
Remember earlier on this season where he faced a bit of a suspension for intentionally wrecking Eric Schaefer at Auto Club? Well, he's struggled since, but tonight he finds his way. Lance Hill gets the congratulations from the drivers behind him, and Stonks Motorsports will get their first proper win of Season 7 with the 1 Chevrolet of Lance Hill getting the victory in unbelievable fashion. Him and Hawken to the start-finish line, and it was the last move, Francisco, off the tri-oval. Not off of turn 4, not before then, and not later. It was off the tri-oval where Lance Hill found his winning moment, and for the first time in Season 7, Lance Hill will enter Paul's Setup Shop Victory Lane from Talladega.
let's see if we can look back and see just how close that kind of a margin is, Kenneth. I mean, it was tight, but Lance Hill made it work and ends that long winless streak of his.
Let's see if we can dial up what happened there, and it was a clean run to the finish. Well, after they got off turn 2, that's when the chaos ensued. We'll get a look at that as well. AJ Green was in the middle of that. This was fresh off the restart with 2 laps to go. And it was a peculiar move. We both questioned it, Francisco, in the moment. AJ Green going down low to have Brandon Hawken help him, but letting Brandon Banks move on by with Lance Hill. That could have been the winning move there off turn 2.
It definitely could have been. I mean, we saw the run that Banks was going to get. And immediately, as soon as he was about to get to the bumper of AJ Green, he just moved down and just gave it to him. That is not something you would expect. And then right here, the run to the white flag, everybody was getting runs from all sorts of places, and eventually a huge crash off of turn 2, which resulted in multiple cars going upside down, including Kevin DeLee and Nicholas Baumann, who was stuck on his roof.
And so here's where things come to a crash in turn 2 for AJ Green. He blocks the move by Brandon Hawken. He saves the race car, and there's still more contact. Hawken darts down low to get away from it. And as Lance Hill is pushing his teammate, it all starts with Cody Kinsey. He'll get the push here from the blue car of Tyler Murray that spins Kinsey, spinning AJ Green and getting many guys in there. Lawson Peel, Eric Schaefer, and the lot. Steven Maggio, Kyle Benson slightly getting away from it. Brandon Banks making a move down low, and at this point, it was the not Stonks and still kind of Stonks and Stonks Motorsports duo with a DVR duo of Banks and Craig Parks, who it appears for Parks gets his best finish this season of 4th. And this was the move that sealed the deal. Entering the tri-oval, Lance Hill saw the space. He got the opening. And to the start-finish line, this is the difference. We'll see the cars appear on the left-hand side of your screen as they cross the line. 28 one-thousandths of a second between Lance Hill and Brandon Hawken. The separation of this much.
Wow. Puts it into perspective just how many close finishes we've had in the history of 4 wide. If this one is going to be number 7, Kenneth, he's just unbelievable job and by Lance Hill, and he was barely clear to be able to even make the move possible. Was risking spinning out in the trial, but he was going for that race win. And we also have a look here on Nicholas Baumann for that last lap crash.
This is what happened with Baumann as Lance Hill continues his celebrations. One that was long awaited for him. And this is the look from Baumann. Oh, man. A hellacious crash, end over end, and Baumann, who had crashed earlier before this, just gets a second blow, and that takes him out of the race. He lands on his roof, and there's no way for him to even finish the race. He's 23rd, possibly the last car to end up finishing the race, quote-unquote, under the lead lap, and several other cars are in there too. Kevin DeLee, watch this hit. I mean, it's ugly.
Unbelievable.
And it's a big crash, and that's many drivers that could have had a good finish. All taken out in that. I mean, AJ Green, of course.
There's Lawson Peel.
Lawson Peel. Many of them getting torn up in this crash. And it is Lance Hill who's able to celebrate. His last win was at Road America back in Season 4, where it was a showdown between himself and Lawson Peel. They crashed entering the Canada corner, and Lance Hill was able to escape first in the waning laps. Got away with the win, but that was the last time we saw it until tonight. Lance Hill finally breaks a winless streak and gets his first W of Season 7 from the Super Speedway in Lincoln, Alabama. Let's get a look at the full unofficial results from Talladega after 96 completed laps and 1 overtime attempt. Lance Hill, the race winner, by 28 one-thousandths of a second. Brandon Hawken follows suit right behind, and as he entered tonight's race with an average finish of 1.57, he grabs another consecutive second-place outing, and this time at a super speedway. Brandon Banks, who's one of the most dominant cars here, escapes with 3rd. Craig Parks with his best finish of the season. That's 4th place for him. Rodney Roberts, after being a lap down earlier tonight, survives for 5th place. Steven Maggio gets away with P6. KBueno Racing gets another one in the top 10 with Jaden Porter back in 7th. 8th place to Kip Easley. 9th to Curtis Kelly and Brian Dixon. How about the Buick Esports Chevrolet? rounding out the top 10.
Adam Alistar is going to be in the 11th spot. Eric Schaefer in the 12th position. Kyle Benson, who was in contention there late, finishes in 13th. Christopher Bishop in the 14th spot. Tony Kivitt recovers from being lapped down to finish in 15th. Craig Lautenschlager in 16th. Timothy Cook will finish in the 17th spot. Tyler Murray, who gave the push to commence that last lap wreck, will finish in the 18th spot. Cody Kinsey, the one who went around, will finish in 19th. And Lawson Peel with a finish in the 20th spot.
Back in 21st is AJ Green, who was up front on the white flag lap in turn 2 before getting spun around and crashing with the rest of them. Michael Newbraw back in 22nd. Nicholas Baumann led a ton of laps tonight, impressed many in the field, but crashed and went on his lid at the end of this one. 23rd is where he's calculated. Kevin D'Elia back in 24th. Daniel Moore sits 25th with Eric Stewart, who started shotgun in the field. He's 26th place. Mikey Neal is back in 27th. Steven Stempian, strong and aggressive early, fell down a lap. Could not replicate any success after that. He is 28th with Trevor Haley 29th. And Ryan Pandicio bringing in the 30th position here from Talladega. And then the final four, Craig Rowe, Austin Reedy, Brandon Gillis, and Juan Escamilla, bringing the end of our 34-car field here at Talladega in stunning fashion. We end this one overtime way, and it is Lance Hill who takes the victory for the first time in a long while. Lance Hill joins us in Paul's setup shot victory lane. And Lance, how does it feel? It has been quite a while, a long overdue win, finally stricken here at Talladega.
I don't know. It's been a while. It's been a long time since I've, felt, this feeling, because it's been, I think, since I think it was Road America, which was a long time ago, a couple of years ago. So it's been a long time, and it really feels good to finally come out here and win one of these things.
And the way you were able to maneuver the end of this race specifically, you put yourself in the right place and you had a ton of other cars around you, but it's all about what happens on that white flag lap. What did you see there behind the wheel, and what was going through your mind as you guys went through 3 and 4, just 4 cars deep?
I really hated not to push AJ because he's my teammate, but I felt like I had to do what set myself up the best, and then he ended up getting wrecked like right whenever I went underneath him. So that left me some open lane to go to the outside, because then I'm pretty sure the 5 tried going down to the inside, and then Brandon Hawkins went down to try and block him. And that allowed me room to try and squeak on the outside, but then he come up and blocked me, so I figured if I just push him, it's going to give him my best chance to possibly make a front straightaway move. And I seen that the 5 car had some help coming, and luckily for my move to happen, I had enough room so I could move down, and he gave me just enough of a shove to kind of clear Hawkins there. So I don't know, I'm really stoked about this.
There's the saying, new year, new you. I mean, there's new year and a new win for you, Lance. You get to basically restart here. I'm guessing there's a lot of momentum on your side now. You're going to be locked into the playoffs as we see it moving forward. So what does that say for the rest of the season and the path that you're going to try and carve for a 4-wide championship now that you're locked in?
Yeah, so far the season ain't been going how I wished it would. Same as the way it went last year. I feel like I tend to put myself in positions, but then either I'll do something stupid or I get caught up in someone else's mess. I mean, so I really feel like, and I hope that this is a turnaround, because I feel like I always end up getting wrecked at these racetracks, and finally some luck swung my way. So I hope it blends into the rest of the season.
Well, Lance, it's win number 1 on the season. You're locked into the playoffs as we move into Darlington next Wednesday night. Before we let you go, anybody in particular that you want to thank or shout out for this race?
Yeah, I'd like to thank the Stonks guys. They brought me back this year after, they brought me back after leaving them and going and make my own team. And they brought me back, and me, AJ, and Colin, we've been doing, feel like, fairly well as a team. This is our first win as a team this year so far, but also the Skybox guys, because we work with them. Let's see here. Thank my parents for all the support that they give me. I'm trying to think. Y'all for broadcasting. Y'all do an amazing job broadcasting. I always love going back and watching the broadcast, because it's always a show to go back and watch it. I believe that might be all I got, though.
Well, we appreciate it, Lance, but you've got one more task to do. Francisco just said in the chat earlier that the winner has to buy him an Oreo Coke. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, buy me an Oreo Coke, please.
Oreo Coke. All right, I'll try my best to get you one.
Maybe
All right, thank you, Hill. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Maybe he'll buy some others and celebrate in victory lane with his teammates. It was a big-time win, Lance, and we're happy to see you back in winning ways. Congratulations on the W here from Talladega. Best of luck at Darlington next week. We'll see you then, and welcome to the playoffs.
Appreciate it.
That is Lance Hill, again, getting his first win since Season 4 at Road America, all the way back then in that fight with Lawson Peel. Wonderful stuff to see Lance Hill back in victory lane. We are joined now by second-place finisher Brandon Hawken, and I said the stat earlier, and I'm going to repeat it again, 1.57, your average finish going into this race. It's your debut super speedway event in 4-wide. What did you make of it?
Man, that was absolutely wild. Towards the beginning, we were doing quite a lot of fuel saving. It was there were a couple points where it was gonna turn into a fuel race, and so yeah. At the very beginning, I was able to get the lead on the outside and hung out there for a few laps, and then I think they were making moves on the bottom, fell back a bit, and then. We had a big one that was basically covered the whole track, and just tried to like slowly get my way through that without getting hit and avoid the chaos after that. And towards the end, it was gonna be fuel mileage again, and my fuel app, I just reinstalled Windows and put everything on it, and my dash was all messed up, so I had a few things missing that I wanted to have, but I made a slight miscalculation on the fuel. I ended up being 1 lap short. A group of us, we kind of went with how could we get the majority of the team onto pit road at the same time. And I think if we were able to stretch it 1 more lap, it would have been good on fuel, but I was trying to save there towards the end, but it just wasn't working, especially when everybody started racing, and then once we all collectively moved to the high line, I was like, you know what, we got to do something. So I got Kevin, and he was down. I was like, we got to shake things up here and maybe hope that a wreck happens. And so I got behind him and I just started pushing him like crazy, and then it started getting pretty dicey between the throughout the field, and that wreck just happened to happen, and so we were able to come get fuel. I stayed on old tires. I think Lance did as well, and we had a plan on that last green white checker. Was we wanted AJ to get the jump off the start so he could pull down in front of me, so I could push him up until the tri-oval, and then anything goes after that. But we had our plans a little bit thwarted there by a few. I think Brandon Banks was one of them. He did a really great job there getting in front of us, and then and then AJ was just in front of me, but I had Lance directly behind me pushing me. Things got crazy. Just about lost it there in the tri-oval, I think, coming to the white. But he did a great job pushing me. It made a couple blocks, and I just wasn't able to block the move that he made to the inside. I was protecting the high line because the side draft is extremely strong on the right side of the car. So I was trying to keep him away from the right side, but he moved to the left, and side draft, he did a fantastic job getting right to my quarter panel, and a little push from Banks, and a little bit of door banging, and we had a fantastic photo finish there. So I'm absolutely pumped after that race. Man, it's been quite a long streak of seconds. I'm still trying to get that win, but it's been great. That race was absolutely fantastic.
That makes it 4 second-place finishes in a row, as far as I see it, from SimRacer Hub and the stat sheet there. I mean, the consistency is there no matter what track you're running, and it seems like a win is going to come down soon. We see what's next on the schedule before the All-Star break in Darlington and Kansas. What do you see out of those two, and what can you do to try to get your 4th win of the season at those tracks?
Yeah, Darlington's always been a little bit of a hit or miss for me. I think I've gotten a little bit stronger there recently, and I've been enjoying it. So, yeah, hopefully, hopefully I have a strong run there. There's probably gonna be a lot of dirty air. So, and there's s- with these cars, it's pretty much a one-lane track except for 3 and 4, where you can, like, if there's a line of cars, you can make some moves on the outside if there's a line of cars on the bottom. So yeah, should make for an interesting race. It'll be yeah, just about keeping it clean, keeping off the wall. The cars are a little bit more sensitive to damage now, so yeah, we're just gonna have to keep the car clean and yeah, hopefully get a good qualifying position. That's gonna be ultra important. And yeah, well, looking forward to that. It's been a long break, but yeah, I'm glad we're back.
Well, Brandon, it was great to see you on a super speedway in this series for the first time and to see you back in action for a second place finish tonight. Is there anyone you want to give the shout out to or thank for tonight's race?
Of course, as always, you guys in the booth, I'll do a fantastic job. Everybody in the league, Lance on the win. That was a fantastic move there at the end. And yeah, Racing Prodigy, Sucker Punch just got back off the plane, went straight onto the sim after dinner, and man, had a lot of fun there. Not weekend, but this week. And yeah, man, looking forward to Darlington. Should be a really great time.
Well, we're glad that everything went well in Sebring and that the flight back home was safe. And we're glad to see you back in action for 4 Wide tonight. Thank you so much for the time, Brandon. Congratulations on the P2 this evening. We'll see you at Darlington next Wednesday.
Thanks, Kenneth. See you next week.
That's Brandon Hawken, driver of the 98 Chevrolet. He is second. Third place is a man who's seen victory lane here several times before. Brandon Banks joins us now. Brandon, you were right in the thick of it, right in that position to get the win. You and Craig Parks working together on that white flag lap. What did you see there heading to the start-finish line?
Yeah, I think I just needed Craig to be a little closer to me on going into the last lap there. He gave me a heck of a push to get the momentum back up once we lost it there. I was hoping AJ would stay with me a little bit longer. I do, Lance and Hawkins being on the same team, they were going to work really good together. But yeah, I think I just needed Craig there to be a little bit closer. He got shuffled back, and he gave me a good shove there at the very end to almost get me back to him, but it just wasn't quite enough. It was hard to beat that team. They were tanning them pretty good up there, so hey, we gave it our best there. I knew I needed to make a move on Hawkins a little earlier than off of 4. I figured that if I made it off of 4, Lance was just going to leave me out to dry, and I just wouldn't have enough momentum. So I figured if I made it early on the backstretch, maybe I had a chance to get Craig back to me a little bit quicker, and he got there, but it just wasn't enough time.
And with this third place finish tonight from Talladega, it becomes your best finish of the season thus far. And we talk about 2025 being a fresh slate for many. For you, it seems that way. What are you trying to put an emphasis for the next several weeks until the All-Star break and the rest of the regular season to get a playoff spot?
I don't know, man. I've had really good car every week. I get caught up in something. I've had a really bad year, way back in points. So we really needed this one tonight. Did everything I could there. I mean, Kansas and Darlington, I believe the last 2 tracks. I'm good there. I just don't know if I'm like Brandon Hawkins or Lawson good. So we're gonna give it everything we can there. And like I said, we really needed tonight. Tonight was probably our best chance. Hey, we gave it a shot there, and we'll go into the next 2 weeks and just try to get as many points as we can, and maybe we'll get lucky and squeak our way in there.
We made the most of the opportunity, and you get a third place finish at the Super Speedway tonight. Before we let you go, Brandon, on the finish, is there anyone you'd like to shout out or thank for this moment?
Oh yeah, well, appreciate you guys for putting on the broadcast. Great job every week as always. With Tyler and Reedy and everybody that puts this on. Appreciate them guys. TJ's team, Paul's setup shop, the DBR guys. Really wish we could have got linked up there a little bit better at the end. We just seemed like every lane that I was in, I couldn't get them with me. But appreciate what they do every week. We work so good together most of the time, and we just came up a little short this week, but we'll be back next week, and I'm sure we'll be pretty strong next 2 weeks.
Well, Brandon, we appreciate the time. Congratulations on the 3rd place finish. We'll see you at Darlington next Wednesday.
All right, man. Thank you.
That's Brandon Banks, who comes home 3rd here from Talladega Superspeedway, and what a finish it was. As we look at it, it is now the 7th closest finish in 4-wide history at 28 1/1000ths of a second. An unbelievable job, and it is Lance Hill who breaks a long winless streak, just like Tyler Murray did all that while ago last season. A great job by both parties to get it all done, and for Lance to pull that move at the very end. We just want to get a word in on the official results from Tyler Murray and the admin crew. They did tell us about a situation that happened on the white flag lap in deciding the running order between teammates Rodney Roberts and Steven Maggio. It appears that they were 5th and 6th at the crossing of the start-finish line in favor of Roberts. Race control decides that based on what happened, Steven Maggio will get 5th, Rodney Roberts will get P6 at the end of all of that as we see it. So it's a quick change of position. Not much in terms of the point standings shift, but it will mean a lot for Rodney Roberts, who it appears right now at Talladega will get his best finish of his 4-wide season to date. Well, that closes off Talladega tonight. Now we just move on through the rest of the schedule, and from a super speedway flat-out track to a very hard-to-drive surface in Darlington Raceway. That's where we'll be 1 week from tonight on January 15th. You'll catch all the action at 8:30 p.m. live on the KBueno Racing Network YouTube channel. Our first trip to Darlington, South Carolina, before we go to the heartland of Kansas Speedway right before the All-Star break on January 29th in Sin City, virtual Las Vegas Motor Speedway. From there, we continue the season up until Daytona to close out the regular campaign and start the postseason in California at the virtual Auto Club Speedway. And just a reminder that if you want to get all the information on the All-Star race taking place on the 29th, here it is for you. The automatic qualifiers, including Lance Hill tonight for getting the race win, all of the other race winners from the last season until now, previous champions and previous All-Star winners will qualify. As for the drivers who are trying to get in by themselves, they'll enter a 35-lap open race to which the top 3 finishers will qualify alongside the next 2 highest in points, and whoever wins the fan vote. And the top 10 in the main event finishers get regular season bonus points that could provide plentiful for a postseason push later on this year in that 100-lap main event. So again, that's Wednesday, January 29th at 8 p.m. Eastern on the KBueno Racing Network for coverage of both the open and the main race. And if you want to tune in with the fan vote, you can find that on the 4wideracing.com website or at 4WR Racing on X for all of the information to vote for your favorite driver and vote for who you want to see in the main event in Las Vegas. So that will do it for our coverage of the Talladega Superspeedway 10th race in Season 7 of the 4-Wide Racing TJ's Team Series. For Tyler Murray and the entire admin council of 4-Wide Racing, for Charlie Beyer and Keelan Belsha at the KBueno Racing Network, and for the crew on the broadcast tonight, for my colleague in the booth, Francisco Bacallao, I'm Kenneth Bueno saying so long from Dega. Congratulations to Lance Hill on the W. We'll see you next week, throwback style, from the virtual Darlington Raceway.